Part 90. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 917. After committing a crime, many people served a period of jail time. After they were released, it was easy for them to end up in prison. The main reason was that their thinking was different from ordinary people, and secondly, their legal awareness was weak. The key was that their way of thinking about facing their own needs and solving problems was completely consistent with their thinking. Ordinary people's cognition is out of tune. In many things, they don't realize that there is a problem with what they do. They just think that since I have come up with such an idea, they can do it as long as no one finds out. What we are mainly talking about here are criminals with low IQs or born criminal personalities. Li Hongfang is not that serious. Her main problem is that she is too whimsical and feels that she is being covered. She does not consider the consequences, only the effects. This is somewhat similar to Ma Benwei's live broadcast. Pick a card? I also like to draw you, Lu Chang'an said angrily, especially her pricing, which is simply a pornographic activity with a clear price tag. Otherwise, who would recharge more than 100,000 yuan in a rice noodle shop? This is enough to eat more than 300,000 bowls of spicy red chicken noodle soup without adding any extra ingredients. It would take decades to finish it 3 times a day. Then, how are you going to whip me? Li Hongfang said coyly. Li Hongfang knew very well that the beating he said just meant beating or beating someone in ordinary people's words, but this may not be an expression of his subconscious. A personality like the master of the door could easily turn people into flesh. Mud shows that there is violence hidden in his nature. This kind of anger needs to be vented from time to time, and as the chief bitch under the sect leader, he naturally has to shoulder this heavy responsibility to maintain his mental health. Just like in many industries, positions that are prone to safety hazards leading to heavy personnel losses, economic losses, and social stability will undergo regular psychological status examinations, etc. Ordinary people with unhealthy minds would be at most a little pervert or mentally ill with random murders. Once a person like the sect leader has an unhealthy mind, it would be too dangerous and would cause huge losses to the entire county. With such a view of the overall situation, Li Hongfang did not hesitate to sacrifice herself and absorb all his violence with a woman's gentle and cotton-like body and mind. This is also a way to save the world, Li Hongfang thought tenderly. Maybe this is the so-called bodhisattva body and compassion. I'll call Shang Guandandan next time and let her whip you with her hair. Lu Chang'an looked at her rapid changes, from coquettish to excited to gentle, and knew that she had already performed several scenes in her mind. Maybe even make him some kind of weird and perverted character. Li Hongfang couldn't help but feel excited. The sect master was really cruel. Shang Guandandan was even scarier than Zhongzi. Li Hongfang had her hair pull out the abnormal substance from her body, and he also saw her hair whipping the water monkey into bones in an instant. This Li Hongfang couldn't stand smoking in this sense. Eat vegetables. Li Hongfang quickly gave Lu Chang'an ribs and used food to divert his attention, lest he continue to think deeply about this issue and eventually put it into practice. He might not really let Shang Guandandan whip her to death, but as long as Shang Guandandan came to punish her, and Li Hongfang was afraid. After eating the meal cooked by Li Hongfang himself, Lu Chang'an sat on the sofa, thinking of Li Hongfang's genius marketing method of trying to go to jail just now, and her delusion of trying to play with him, which made him feel a little unhappy. So he kick off your shoes and lie down with your eyes closed to relax. It will take some time for Li Hongfang to go out. After all, she is a woman, and she likes to collect song paintings. She often appears in some auctions and appreciation-related occasions. It is basic etiquette to attend such occasions with makeup and formal dress. Li Hongfang can be regarded as an exquisite woman when she is not digging graves. Otherwise, she is also a delicate woman. I won't take Zhou Shuling to a spa in a high-end hotel. When going to meet the woman under the care of the sect owner, Li Hongfang naturally has to dress up carefully. She may not win in terms of beauty, but she has to put on a custom skirt with high slits, backless and low cut, which is both sexy and missing. She has to work hard to turn heads. Victory. After putting on makeup, dressing up, and wearing 10-centimeter high heels, Li Hongfang looked at herself in the mirror with satisfaction. She was sexy and not exposed, and her beautiful back, fortunately, she didn't go for cupping yesterday. Walking to the living room, Li Hongfang saw Lu Chang'an lying on the sofa, with one hand supporting his cheek and the other making a fist in front of his lower abdomen. His body was slightly lying on his side. He couldn't help feeling a little emotional. The door owner now had the face of an old man, but his posture and body said the feeling of overwhelming energy that does not come out. When he came to Lu Chang'an, Li Hongfang did not wake him up, but sat on the other end of the sofa. He secretly regretted not bringing out wine to accompany the meal just now. Otherwise, he could have drunk him more, which might not have made him unconscious. Not to a certain extent, but at least it can make him sleep a little better. Li Hongfang lowered his head and looked at his feet. A man's feet should be broad and strong, which can give people a sense of down-to-earth stability. Delete the description of Li Hongfang taking advantage of Lu Chang'an. What are you doing? Lu Chang'an sat up and put on his shoes. In fact, he just closed his eyes and meditated. When Li Hongfang tiptoed over, he didn't move. He just wanted to see what she would do when she came over. There was dust on your socks just now. I want to blow them off for you, Li Hongfang explained without blushing. She had already figured out Lu Chang'an's temper. As long as she lowered her posture low enough and licked enough, if she is shameless, he won't argue with her. In fact, I can't say it's shameless, it's just reverence from the bottom of my heart. For example, when I visited Sanya, the Nanhai Guanyin was so majestic. After burning incense and entering the main hall, many people were willing to climb the 7 flights of stairs to worship the Buddha's feet. What is the difference between this and what I just did? It was just an expression of piety. Thinking of this, Li Hongfang's expression became more solemn and natural. Hearing Li Hongfang's explanation, Lu Chang'an fell into deep thought. Ever since he came into contact with Zhu Huntang, Li Hongfang, Shang Guandandan and other people with strange ideas, he felt more and more ordinary and ordinary. His thinking is so mediocre and no different from ordinary people. How can we understand the brain circuits and thoughts of these geniuses? Now it seems that all the dignified Zhu Fenglai sword sect are all such extraordinary people, except for myself, there is no normal person. He raised his head again and looked at Li Hongfang. After observing her words, she found that the door owner was too lazy to argue with her and actually pinched his feet on his own initiative. I have to say, it was quite comfortable. What Li Hongfang was wearing today looked much better than the leaky outfit Lu Chang'an saw last time. Okay, starting from today, you have passed the assessment and officially joined the Zhu Fenglai sword section. You will not hold any position for the time being. You will only follow my instructions. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and said. There is no reason not to let her join anymore. I have helped with a lot of things. It may not be done well, but at least she is dedicated, and has this scholarly heart, and the complete respect and admiration from the heart, which is enough to make Lu Chang'an relent. Thank you, Sect Master. Li Hongfang didn't expect that not only would she not be punished for her behavior, but she would also allow him to accept her joining the 9 provinces Fenglai sword section. This was equivalent to truly leaving his mark on her. From then on, she was completely his, completely controlling and dominating her. Li Hongfang was overjoyed. She hugged Lu Chang'an and kissed him twice. When she saw his brows furrowed, she quickly put him down and quickly put on his shoes. Li Hongfang doesn't know much about the Kyushu Fenglai sword sect, but now that he has joined, the sense of security is real. Li Hongfang even feels that even if he meets Rasputin again, he will not be afraid anymore and dare to mess with me. I'll invite the sect master over when I get back. I'll scare you to death with a slap in the face. Even if you enter a weird place like the Eastern Han Dynasty tomb, as long as the golden signboard of Juzhu Fenglay Sword Gate is shown, it must be that the gods and ghosts have retreated, the ashes are flying, and the owner of the tomb consciously sends the underworld weapon up. We are a relatively loose organization, but after joining, as long as you don't violate my bottom line, I will protect you and keep you young. Lu Chang'an didn't have any ideas against Li Hongfang, he was just a female subordinate. The youth of the disciples is always there, and it is pleasing to the eye. Who wants to have all the old ladies under his command? Yes, the sect master Li Hongfang said respectfully. At this time, she was not in such a hurry. She stared at his sexy figure. Since he had accepted him as his sect, she must have participated in the activities of everyone in the section sooner or later. Being able to preserve one's youthful years is naturally a very important benefit. What woman wouldn't want this? Of the billions of women on the planet, how many can enjoy true youth? Li Hongfang guessed that the mysterious core of the Juzhu Fenglay sword sect contained the ability to achieve such heaven-defying effects. That was why so many female disciples flocked to the Juzhu Fenglay sword sect in the past, which was enough to meet the needs of the sect master. It can be seen from Shangguan Dandan that eternal youth and immortality are not a fantasy, but a real existence. Let's go. Lu Chang'an and Li Hongfang walked out of the door. After the last mission, they reduced the coverage of the armor in order to be sexy. In the end, they had the experience of dragging oil bottles. Li Hongfang put the remaining parts of the armor in the crocodile skin handbag that he carried with him. It can be easily taken out when in danger, and carrying a large men's bag with Lu Chang'an, it looks like a little secretary carrying a bag. This image makes Li Hongfang very satisfied. After getting off the elevator, turning right and walking into the lobby, the two of them stopped at the same time. At the tea seat in the lobby, Li Jiama and Gao Yaneng were actually sitting together having a drink. There were about 10 people scattered around Li Jiama, who seemed to be his entourage and bodyguards, while the hotel manager Li Hongfang knew was walking around further outside. It seems that Li Jiama was really low-key enough when he stayed in the hotel before. Today, he was exposed as a domestic internet tycoon and a top investor in the field of biomedicine and genetic technology. When the hotel saw him coming again, the response was completely different. It was different, but the hotel manager didn't have the privilege of going up to talk to him, and was kept on the outside. Gao Yaneng stood up and said hello to Li Hongfang. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but wonder, how did Gao Yaneng know Li Hongfang? Li Jiama also nodded to Lu Chang'an, and Lu Chang'an and Li Hongfang walked over to say hello. After chatting and sitting down, they learned that Gao Yaneng did not know Li Jiama before. He just came to the hotel to discuss business and met Li Jiama. I felt that Li Jiama had a good temperament, like an elegant person who loved to drink tea, so he came over to chat and get to know each other. Li Jiama didn't have any airs about Mr. Gao, and he didn't dislike Mr. Gao, who started out as a micro-businessman. As for Li Jiama's inner feelings, don't worry about it. Human beings don't care about their deeds, and being able to show off is enough. If you want the other party to really take him seriously or treat him as an equal, you ultimately have to rely on your own personality, charm or strength. Xiao Fang, it turns out you also know Mr. Li. Did you drink the tea I gave you last time? Gao Yaneng said to Li Hongfang enthusiastically. Lu Chang'an recalled the time he met Li Hongfang. At that time, he was sitting in the lobby bar drinking tea. It was the first time he recognized Gao Yaneng's scented tea. Later, he learned that Lu Yuwang had served as a brand spokesperson for Gao Yaneng. Just because Mr. Gao wanted to pursue Lu Yuwang had no choice but to refuse to continue cooperation. Without the income from being a brand ambassador, Professor Lu had to work hard, and finally placed an order for a Porsche with hundreds of thousands of dollars funded by his father. We are old friends. Professor Lu and I have just met, but we had a great time chatting with each other, just like chatting with Mr. Gao today, Li Jiama said with a smile. Lu Chang'an took a sip of tea and smiled slightly. I drank it, and it was pretty good. Li Hongfang drinks all kinds of tea, and is not picky about it. She is not averse to scented tea. She especially feels that drinking scented tea can make her lips and teeth smell more natural than the scent of breath fresheners, mouthwash, or chewing gum. Have you ever considered being the brand spokesperson for our scented tea? Takano Ning asked a little eagerly. Ah, I haven't thought about this yet. Li Hongfang couldn't help but glance at Lu Chang'an. She remembered her stillborn plan of Mi Fan Niang, who was originally the spokesperson of the Red Soup Spicy Rooster Noodle Shop. Li Jiama saw Li Hongfang's turning back in her eyes. She really cared about Professor Lu very much. She paid attention to his opinions on everything and wanted him to help make decisions. The last time Li Jiama sent someone to follow him, Professor Lu came out of the hotel and threw Li Jiama's man upside down into the trash can without asking any questions. This really made Li Jiama a little regretful. This Professor Lu was invisible and concealed his identity. Now that he appears again, I'm afraid he is not alone. He has become a force of his own, and there is someone protecting him secretly. Otherwise, how can he be sure of the person he is following? But what is certain is that Li Jiama left Li Hongfang's room at that time, and Lu Jianxi also left not long after. It was impossible to do anything in such a short time. Even Li Jiama, with some auxiliary means, would not be able to in such a short period of time. This biologist should have the means, otherwise his level of research on immortality would be quite doubtful. If his ability in that area is not good enough, the fun of immortality will be reduced too much, right? Li Jiama only felt that he had underestimated Li Hongfang. The last time she was with that young man, her affection and admiration were beyond words. She also claimed that he was her god. This time, she was followed by an old man with the same look on his face. The stockings are charming. You think about it yourself. Mr. Gao is a very good person. Lu Chang'an pressed the corners of his mouth with 2 fingers, and then said with a gentle expression. He could see that Gao Yaneng was frustrated in his pursuit of Lu Yuwang and felt hopeless to move on. To pursue goals. But looking for Li Hongfang to endorse scented tea? The most suitable scented tea for her to endorse is probably licorice. I don't know if Mr. Gao has developed this scented tea. Do you know me? Gao Yaneng said unexpectedly. The middle-aged and elderly man in front of him had an easygoing, gentle, and elegant demeanor, which made Gao Yaneng slightly familiar. However, he couldn't think of anyone whose temperament overlapped with him. My son's name is Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an said with a smile. Ah, it's Lu Chang'an. He knows all 3 brothers of our Gao family. He has a particularly good relationship with our Dui family. He is also the consultant of our Kunyi martial arts school. Gao Yaneng stood up happily, bent over, and shook hands again. Then since we are so familiar with each other, I will accept this endorsement. Li Hongfang knows how to look at his eyes. If he doesn't accept it, the sect owner will definitely have no problem with it, but if he accepts it, the sect owner will definitely have face. Great, I'll send you the completed contract as soon as I get back. Gao Yaneng stood up quickly. He was a man of facts. He didn't want to delay anything. He wanted to finalize for a minute. He shook hands with Lu Chang'an's father gratefully. I shook hands, but I didn't expect that. As soon as he opened his mouth, he just said that Mr. Gao was a nice person, and Li Hongfang agreed. Next to him, Li Jiama drank tea silently, but he kept cursing impulsively in his heart. Isn't Lu Chang'an the young man that Li Hongfang proposed to take with him to excavate the number 2 tomb of Marquis Haihun last time? Li Jiama is sure that Lu Chang'an and Li Hongfang are having an affair, and Li Hongfang has no intention of hiding it. Now that Li Hongfang is involved with Lu Jianxi again, is this a father-son affair? Li Hongfang, I didn't expect you to play so wildly, but such a woman makes people even more impulsive. Since you play so wildly, why don't you play with me? Just as their hearts were surging, Li Hongfang and Lu Chang'an stood up and were about to leave. Li Jiama made a phone call gesture, indicating that he would talk to Li Hongfang if he had anything to do. Li Hongfang nodded, gently took Lu Chang'an's arm and walked out of the hotel lobby. Master, when Li Jiama heard you say Lu Chang'an was Lu Jianshi's son, his eyes changed. Li Hongfang said to Lu Chang'an a little shyly. I want to eat you. He's always wanted to, but he just doesn't have the ability. Li Hongfang said disdainfully, old guy, he doesn't even think about how old he is. Lu Chang'an frowned. I'm not talking about you, Sect Master. Sect Master, you naturally live as long as the heavens, as long as Nanshan. No matter how old you are not a thing. No matter how old you are not an old thing, in short. Li Hongfang quickly patted herself twice. Slap, my subordinate said something wrong, please ask the master to whip him. I'm too lazy to pay attention to you. Li Jiama thinks you have a relationship with both father and son. I think you're quite excited. Lu Chang'an is not a narrow-minded person. Li Hongfang also proved that she just wants to flatter you and is not a shady person with a gun and a stick. Sarcastically. I would be frightened to the point of incontinence at every turn, and I didn't have the courage. A bit, we women are all like this. When we are humiliated, we will be very angry, but when we are not really hurt, we like to think wildly. Li Hongfang was honest and wanted him to see the sincerity in her heart. Meaning? Only you. Yes, I'm the only one like this. Li Hongfang didn't refute at all. Since the sect owner said that she was like this, he would be able to understand it if he could tell some storylines about this aspect and include him as the protagonist in the future, right? When they arrived at the parking lot, Lu Chang'an sat in the back seat and handed over the shoe box on the seat. Li Hongfang took it and changed his shoes while thinking, would a noble man like the owner of the door lick a woman's feet? But I don't dare to ask such a question. I'll find out when I observe it carefully. We are going to meet Yan Hui, the person Zhang Hongai has been thinking about. She is a rural teacher and has been working conscientiously on the education line in poor rural areas. I plan to ask Zhu Huntang to do something to help students and set up a charity foundation. To manage the student fund, the first thing is to help Yan Hui build the new school she loves. Lu Chang'an said to Li Hongfang. Okay, I can do more work if I can. Li Hongfang patted her chest and said, her heart filled with ambition. She just officially joined the Zhu Fenglai sword sect today, and she will fight wherever the sect leader tells her. No need for you. I plan to let Qin Yanan take care of this matter, otherwise she will be too busy. I let you meet Yan Hui just to facilitate contact. If something happens in the future and I don't have time to go there, you can help her deal with it. You have rich experience and are good at hurting people with yin and yang, and you are also able to deal with harming people, idlers and fools in places like the countryside. Lu Chang'an said after thinking. Li Hongfang was a little depressed. How could her experience be enriched? He has no experience in any walks of life. In his early life, he just dug around and dealt with dead people. He was not good at intrigues with living people. Dead people are very simple, so in a simple environment, Li Hongfang it's also very simple. In particular, Qin Yanan is mainly responsible for this matter. Li Hongfang used to follow Qin Yanan's rival. In Li Hongfang's mind, Qin Yanan is a very scheming, intrigue-loving, green woman. She is not at all like Miss Su. Dare to love and hate. Miss Su's unswerving love is just like her loyalty and admiration for the sect master. What's more, she gave the armor to Li Hongfang just to strengthen her capital to confront Qin Yanan. Li Hongfang knew very well that even though she had the armor, she seemed to have no effect in front of the sect master, but capital is capital. Otherwise, she would be just an ordinary woman who looks more beautiful than stunning, and has a top-notch figure. How could she be qualified to get started? The eyes of the Lord? This was Miss Su's kindness to him, and Li Hongfang had to repay it, so he would confront Qin Yanan no matter what in the future. Let's do it opposite each other most of the time. It's okay to do it together occasionally, Li Hongfang thought seriously. Ahem, poor mountains and rivers breed unruly people. This saying means that people in some places are poor and impoverished. We have encountered this before. We went there with projects, which were obviously good intentions and could help them get rid of poverty and become rich, but they ended up with various if you don't cooperate, you only care about the little money you have in front of you. You don't care how much benefit you can bring to the whole place. Li Hongfang traveled all over the country and saw a lot of dead people, but in the end he still saw more living people. The point is, the project you are bringing is just a cover, right? It's just to facilitate your digging. Lu Chang'an saw through it at a glance. That's what I'm saying. Li Hongfang felt a little embarrassed and stepped on the accelerator. The rumble of the engine and the feeling of back thrust made people excited, and they forgot a little bit of embarrassment. Your car is very powerful. Brake 100 in 3.5 seconds. Lu Chang'an couldn't believe it. Such a behemoth broke 100 in 3.5 seconds. Master, your waist is stronger, like an electric motor. Li Hongfang took the opportunity to compliment him. What man doesn't like such a compliment? Lu Chang'an closed his eyes and refused to answer her words. The car drove to the Lushan Hotel parking lot. When Li Hongfang and Zhou Shuling came to the hotel for a spa 2 days ago, they met Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan actually pretended not to recognize her and asked her if she was Zhou Dongdong's grandmother. Li Hongfang didn't want to meet Qin Yinan and stayed in the car. Lu Chang'an went to find Qin Yinan and Yan Hui. They originally planned to visit Mizi Lake in the afternoon, but Lu Chang'an called and waited for him at home. The two of them received Lu Chang'an's massage together that day and felt much closer. Qin Yinan also felt more of the same hatred towards Yan Hui because she had been tortured by Sumei. Today Yan Hui put on the white pajamas Qin Yinan bought. It is densely covered with hollow patterns, which is vaguely sexy. There are classes to be held tomorrow. Qin Yinan saw him and hinted that the class on Sunday was of course not a school class, but a training class for pregnant women. Yan Hui just thought it was some elective courses or other courses arranged on Sundays in the university, and did not take it seriously. She looked at this tall man with soft eyes. His figure often appeared in front of her eyes in the past few years. But they are not as tender and affectionate as they are now. The woman will indeed be imprinted with his unique mark at a certain point, and from then on, she will only be thinking about him. Okay, but you also have to do me a favor. I plan to let Zhu Huntang bleed some blood. Lu Chang'an nodded and said to Qin Yinan. Isn't it? Qin Yinan quickly persuaded her, don't go up to her. No matter how much she behaves, you can just hit her and it'll be over. Usually making trouble and scolding, Qin Yinan still feels very sorry for her stepdaughter and best friend. After all, Zhu Huntang has always liked to lie in her arms and rub against each other since she was a child. Over the years, the relationship has been deep, which is not ordinary. Plastic bestie. Where did you go? Lu Chang'an told him his plan. Teacher, on behalf of the children in the village, I thank you. Yan Hui was so excited that tears filled her eyes. Qin Yinan smiled. My brother felt that he was too idle in the mountains and had to find something for her to do. However, in the past 2 days, I heard Yan Hui talk about a lot of education problems in poor areas. Qin Yinan would not go to Shonan. The province can go to help that place ask for money and policies, but it is perfectly fine to contribute in this kind of matter. When problems arise with local administration or cadre cooperation, her identity can be put to legitimate use. Lu Chang'an hugged Yan Hui and patted her back, then took Qin Yinan's tablet to make a video call to Zhu Huntang. The video call went through quickly, and a sheep actually appeared on the screen. It made a baa sound, then turned its head, as if it realized that it was now a sheep, and then barked twice more. From the screen, ran away. Why is it a sheep? Isn't Zhu Huntang here? Could it be that the sheep connected the phone? Qin Yinan looked at the sheep and couldn't help but find it funny. The cute and silly expressions of these animals when they came close to the camera were very interesting. Maybe it's her pet, Lu Chang'an said expressionlessly. Not only did she turn into a sheep and sneak out to play, but she also liked to turn into a sheep when she was alone. Lu Chang'an even suspected that if she were not afraid of being discovered, she might have spent more time as a sheep than as a human. No, she was very little when she was a human being. After a while, Zhu Huntang, who was wearing pajamas, appeared in front of the camera in a daze, shouting, "Old man, I'm taking a nap. I just had a dream, and I dreamed that you also became sheep. Take me to play on the moon." We gnawed all the carrot fields of the jade rabbit, gnawed off the leaves and bark of Wu Sangwee's sweet-scented osmanthus tree, drove Chang'e out of the moon palace, and roasted the jade rabbit for her. Solid food. From now on I will be Chang'e and you will be Chang'e's father. I will let you establish the 9 provinces Wind and Thunder Sword sect in the Moon Palace, and officially make me the leader of the colorful Moon Palace sect, which is bigger than the sect leader. Lu Chang'an didn't know what to say for a moment. He would never contact her if it was not necessary. Just opening her mouth can make Lu Chang'an's head swollen and her thoughts blocked, because what she says is always messy and difficult to sort out. The one on the moon is Wu Gang, not Wu Sangui. Wu Sangui was a traitor in the late Ming dynasty. He rebelled first against the Ming dynasty and then against the Qing court. Do you understand? Qin Yan'an corrected him. Zhu Huntang must have put him there because there were laurel trees in the moon palace. Wu Sangui, whose name has Gui in it, is regarded as Wu Gang. Yan Hui did not appear in the camera. She looked at Lu Chang'an's expression and knew that sometimes she was as helpless as a cerebral hemorrhage when facing some students. But this child was Qinzi's tutor? Even Wu Gang and Wu Sangui couldn't tell the difference. Yan Hui had some idea of why her daughter's tutoring fees were so high. I made you laugh, Lu Chang'an said to Yan Hui, who was standing outside the camera. Qin Go, you traitor, you have no right to speak. I told you that if you don't accompany me to Nanshan to play, you will teach the people how to learn the language when I come back. Just wait, Zhu Huntang thought carefully. I didn't think there was any difference between Wu Gang and Wu Sangui. When I heard Qin Yan'an's voice, I snorted coldly. I thought about the time when I was playing with her on the grassy hill in Wuliang River, and she also said that she was willing to accompany Zhu Huntang on the grassland for the rest of her life. I was just playing around, but in the end I didn't want to come to Nanshan grassland anymore. It was all a lie. But, just now Professor Lu said to let you bleed, and I still spoke for you. Qin Yan'an didn't take it seriously. Now Lu Chang'an has heightened his vigilance and is deeply aware of the dangers of Zhu Huntang. She is going to harm Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an will definitely beat him to tears. Hearing Qin Yan'an stutter on the word Lu, Zhu Huntang realized that there must be someone next to him who was not suitable for knowing Lu Chang'an's 2 faces. He thought of the last time Zhu Huntang saw him change like this, and it was Yan Hui who met him. Does it mean that Yan Hui is by her side today? Zhu Huntang tilted his head and ran out. What are you doing again? He walked away without saying hello. Lu Chang'an took the tablet and turned it over to take a look. Can you turn over and see where she went? Qin Yan'an looked amused and touched her brother's forehead tenderly. He really would get very angry whenever he saw Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang ran out, went to Yan Qingcheng's room, and called Yan Qingcheng over. The 2 girls sat side by side in front of the camera. Cheng Zi, seeing his daughter appear, Yan Hui came over, smiled and waved to greet her daughter. How about tutoring the 3rd lady? Let's talk about the linear equation of one variable, Yan Qingcheng said. Seeing her mother standing next to Professor Lu with a dimple-like smile, Yan Qingcheng also showed a peaceful smile. It is really rare to see her mother like this. A smile that smells of pure happiness. Not bad. Are you done with the first chapter of rational numbers and the addition and subtraction of integers in the 2nd chapter? Lu Chang'an said with some surprise. Yan Qingcheng was quite good at dealing with Zhu Huntang. he was actually able to force Zhu Huntang to listen to 2 chapters in a short time. A large chapter course. After the surprise, Lu Chang'an frowned again, wondering if his requirements were too low. She was a college student. This was a 7th grade course, and she was learning the same level as Zhou Dongdong. I'm awesome, Zhu Huntang was proud of Yang Yang. There is probably no one as diligent, studious, and talented as him. Yan Qingchen was about to say that as long as Zhu Huntang stopped arguing, rational numbers were Lu Chang'an's first state and irrational numbers were his second state. Yan Qingchen asked Yan Qingchen to use Lu Chang'an's 2 states to refer to irrational numbers and rational numbers in lectures. Yan Qingchen started teaching. It went quite smoothly. But she suddenly realized that Professor Liu's attitude towards Zhu Huntang was so similar to that of Lu Chang'an towards Zhu Huntang. Exactly the same. Postponed by 1 day, 8,000 words turned into 9,300 words. Thanks again to all the bosses for the reward. Is there any reward from the boss and more updates? During the double monthly pass period, the rewards and updates are also doubled. Normally, one 10,000 word chapter will be added, but now there are 2. Is there any? I guess not. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 918. Yan Qingchen remembered that Zhu Huntang disappeared a few days ago. After Lu Chang'an found her, he hurriedly asked Yan Qingchen to help Zhu Huntang make up for the missed lessons. Lu Chang'an was not indifferent to Zhu Huntang's studies, and so was Professor Lu in front of him. I heard that this third lady, who was already studying at Shonan University, finally completed the 2-chapter 7th grade course. Her expression of surprise was undisguised, just like the landlord knew that his stupid son finally stopped running to the widow's house and wanted to find her. My daughter-in-law has helped carry on the family legacy. Although this surprise disappeared immediately, it seemed that he realized that there was nothing to be happy about. Because of this subconscious surprise is the most real attitude. If it wasn't Professor Lu who was in front of him, but Lu Chang'an heard the news, he would probably have the same reaction. It seems that this is not a simple close relationship or a friendship, but it would attract so much attention, right? For example, Qin Yinan and Zhu Huntang have a very good relationship, but as Zhu Huntang's counselor, Qin Yinan turns a blind eye to her studies. Qin Yinan's house is even a destination where Zhu Huntang would skip classes. Qin Yinan was indulgent, but Lu Chang'an and Professor Lu were strict. If it were just Lu Chang'an, that would be fine. He had a completely different personality and attitude from Qin Yinan, and with Professor Lu, the father and son had exactly the same attitude and tone towards Zhu Huntang. Why? She was not very sure. After all, Professor Lu only said one sentence, so Yan Qingchen continued to test and said, Miss San believes that she now wants to specialize in mathematics research without any distractions, and decided to stop your history and culture teaching when she comes back. Yes, I have already done some research on the Book of Songs, and I have also read the Children's History Encyclopedia picture book, which is quite knowledgeable. Zhu Huntang frowned. Don't think that there are children in the Children's History Encyclopedia picture book with 2 words, it is no longer a serious historical literature. It has 5 volumes. I think in terms of professionalism in historical knowledge, it is second only to Sun Qinji, which has 8 volumes. Is it the Children's Historical Encyclopedia picture book or Looking for Qin that taught you Wu Sangui to chop down trees on the moon? Lu Chang'an said expressionlessly, I will teach you an idiom now, make it worse. When you come back, I will ask Lu. The professor is here to give you a literature class. Although she is a literature major, she is more than enough to teach you basic historical and cultural knowledge. Ah, Professor Lu, her class is so boring, not interesting at all, Zhu Huntang quickly exclaimed, holding his head and shaking his head. Interesting? Interesting? Do you think I'm playing with you? Lu Chang'an hasn't told Lu Yuwang yet, but Professor Lu has emptied his family fortune after buying a car, and is trying to increase income and reduce expenditure, so it's just right for him to teach Zhu Huntang in his free time. Zhu Huntang fell on the bed unhappily, rolled a bit, and then lay still. Yan Qingcheng looked at Zhu Huntang suspiciously. She thought that Professor Liu's suggestion seemed to be playing into Zhu Huntang's hands. Now Zhu Huntang was just pretending. Yan Qingcheng was not familiar with Professor Liu, but based on her current understanding of Zhu Huntang, Professor Liu's elegant and slightly naive temperament in the ivory tower will only be played by Zhu Huntang. But this is not the focus of Yan Qingcheng's attention. The scene in front of him is so similar to an old father who is racking his brains to make his daughter study better, and a daughter who is racking his brains to try to deceive the old father in exchange for a chance to skip school and have fun. Originally, this scene happened repeatedly between Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang. Yan Qingcheng still felt that something was wrong. Even if Lu Chang'an was his brother, he was a little too troublesome and fierce and harsh. But if it was Professor Liu, there was no sense of disobedience at all. Could it be that Zhu Huntang is actually Professor Liu's biological daughter? Yan Qingcheng was startled by this thought. She had already learned from Zhu Huntang that the Zhu family was the ultimate version of the wealthy family in dramas, because it was common for several people to die in overt and covert fights, and Zhu Huntang declared without hesitation, "My mother is one of the most powerful evil forces in the world. Is his life in danger if he knows such a secret? My mother seemed to have offended someone and was depressed throughout her life." Yan Qingcheng quickly stopped thinking. Does the relationship between others have anything to do with her? After all, people like Zhu Huntang, Lu Chang'an, and Professor Liu are not from the same world as me, so I just need to do this job well. At this time, Zhu Huntang sat up again. It was a rare video call from the old man, which made Zhu Huntang a little happy in this remote wilderness. "By the way, Qin Yinan just said that you were bleeding. Is it a cerebral hemorrhage or a nosebleed? Give it to me. I mean, let you bleed some. If it weren't for the screen, Lu Chang'an would have really wanted to punch her in the nose and ask her to hold a basin to catch her own blood. Let's get down to business." Zhu Huntang became serious. "Don't interrupt." Lu Chang'an clenched his fist and hit the backrest of the sofa. Yan Hui and Qin Yinan held his hand in a tacit understanding, calming the man's irritable mood. Such a small move, mainly because he was worried about Yan Qingcheng. In front of Zhu Huntang, who thought Lu Chang'an had 100,000 women, there was no need to avoid it. Yan Qingcheng's mother, Teacher Yan, is an educator and has been teaching at the grassroots level for many years. She hopes to build a local school with better teachers and facilities that can meet local teaching needs. "I want to simply set up a school. The charity foundation manages the teaching charity fund. You pay the money, and Qin Yinan is responsible for managing the foundation." Lu Chang'an originally wanted to find Sumei, but let Zhu Huntang come forward. "Isn't she preparing to apply to join the party? Although I think she is not qualified, but I still have to help her with suggestions, otherwise if I let her gain popularity by herself, who knows what ridiculous and exaggerated things she will do." Zhu Huntang has no bottom line when doing things, only whims. "Okay, I will invest in my own name, but I have a condition." Zhu Huntang originally planned to let Baojun Group inject capital, but thinking about it, injecting capital in the name of the company is very troublesome, involving many internal problems, and secondly, the social benefits gain, the impact and income belong to the group and have little to do with her personally. The future review and fund supervision of personal investment will also be much simpler. You tell me it's normal to have conditions. Lu Chang'an is not surprised that a businessman's daughter has been involved in trading since elementary school. "You come and play with me tomorrow." Zhu Huntang glanced at Yan Qingcheng next to him and coughed. "No, I mean Lu Chang'an, let my brother Lu come and play with me." Lu Chang'an glared at her, and then hung up the video call. "You are really no big deal. Do you have the ability to call your mother sister Su, third sister-in-law and so on next time?" Looking at the hung-up video call interface, Yan Qingcheng felt extremely weird. In the end, Zhu Huntang clearly asked Professor Lu to accompany her at first, but then after taking a look at Yan Qingcheng, he changed his mind and asked Lu Chang'an to accompany her. Play. What does Zhu Huntang's look mean? Does it mean that she originally wanted Professor Lu to play with her, but after taking a look at Yan Qingcheng, she thought that Professor Lu should play with Yan Hui, so she asked Lu Chang'an to play with him? Yan Qingcheng felt that it was not Professor Lu who was closer to Zhu Huntang in the eyes of Zhu Huntang, and chose Lu Chang'an as the second best choice. It didn't make sense. Zhu Huntang usually pestered Lu Chang'an in school, just like the kittens and puppies Lu Chang'an raised. She was either headbutting him or scribbling and scratching on him. She was extremely naughty, but Lu Chang'an never got tired of it and would not teach her a lesson for it. It's just that Zhu Huntang subconsciously asked Professor Lu to play with her, which shows that Professor Lu and her are close enough. Does this mean that Professor Lu equals Lu Chang'an in terms of closeness? Professor Lu equals Lu Chang'an. No, my idea was too ridiculous. How could I have thought that Professor Lu equals Lu Chang'an had gone? It was just the closeness, which only meant that Professor Lu and his son had a generally good relationship with Zhu Huntang. But something is still wrong. Where can a girl play well with a father and son? It doesn't matter if the father is accompanying her or the son is accompanying her. If you think about it this way, it can only prove one thing. Zhu Huntang is indeed Professor Liu's daughter. A father and an older brother pamper his younger sister like a little princess in the family. That's probably it. Yan Qingcheng breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't know whether the answer came naturally or if he reluctantly accepted it. Yan Qingcheng held her cell phone and looked at Lu Chang'an's name in the address book. She resisted not dialing or sending a message. Chinzi, what are you thinking about? Zhu Huntang stared at Yan Qingcheng suspiciously. The relationship between Zhu Huntang and Yan Qingcheng has improved a lot compared to when they first started tutoring. Yan Qingcheng is also very friendly and has a natural affinity. However, Zhu Huntang knows very well that Yan Qingcheng's character and thoughts are by no means comparable to Bai Fen. Bai Hui is the kind of woman who thinks she is very scheming and thinks she is very powerful. This is very different from Zhu Huntang, no, from the witty Miss Zhu San. Zhu Huntang has complete control over the little white pig. Yan Qingcheng was not that simple. Zhu Huntang suspected that the call he had just had with Lu Ji and Shi Chang'an aroused some doubts in Yan Qingcheng. The time has come to showcase the art of mistake Zan's battle of wits and courage. Thanks to Liang Daji for his generous reward, a new leader has been added to this book. I wish the boss immortality and immortality. During the double monthly pass period, the rewards and updates will also be doubled. A new month has begun. Thank you for your support in September through rewards and monthly tickets. I also appreciate your monthly tickets for October. The big chapter will be delivered on October 1 st. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 919. Zhu Huntang put the tablet back on the table, then got up from the bed, picked out a pair of underwear with many grazing sheep on it and put it on. Chinzi, can you do the face-changing magic? Zhu Huntang took down the two peaking opera masks hanging in the picture frame on the wall, held one in front of his face, and quickly replaced it with the other. I think, what you are talking about should be called face-changing. It is a unique skill of Sichuan opera, a technique used to show the changes in the inner thoughts and emotions of the characters in the play. Yan Qingcheng explained calmly. Did Zhu Huntang see that he was looking at what happened, so you are hinting? Zhu Huntang stared at Yan Qingcheng for 5 seconds. Yan Qingcheng brushed her neat bangs, then turned her head to avoid Zhu Huntang's gaze, and said with a smile, Lu Chang'an seems to know everything. If you want to watch people, he should be able to do magic. He once performed magic tricks for me and jumped from the top floor of Bailong Center. Later, I wanted to invite a magic master to compete with him, but gave up to avoid humiliating myself. Zhu Huntang yawned. Today has already happened. After studying for 2 hours, I'm so tired that I want to sleep. Yan Qingcheng helped her pack her textbooks, pulled away a corner of the quilt, and then left Yan Qingcheng's bedroom. Zhu Huntang has determined the answer he wants through simple observation. When my mother and I visited Taku Street in Hot Pot Province for market shooting, the local place arranged a face-changing show. Anyway, if important people visit the place, the local people will put out pandas and face-changing shows to entertain them. If not, it is just because the visitor is not important enough. Just now, Zhu Huntang took out 2 Peking opera masks and performed a superb face-changing art, which was of course an obvious hint. She just wanted to see if Yan Qingcheng could understand this hint. The premise that can be understood must be suspicion of the relationship between Lu Chang'an and Lu Jianxi. People without suspicion will not notice this hint. So how does Zhu Huntang judge whether Yan Qingcheng has realized it? Of course it depends on Yan Qingcheng's reaction. Normally, Yan Qingcheng would have explained with a helpless smile, but she didn't, because her mind at that time was not to correct Zhu Huntang's misunderstanding, but to realize Zhu Huntang's hint, and she was hiding the strong surprise in her heart. Or some other emotion. Yan Qingcheng is young after all, and she is hiding her emotions in her heart. The best she can do is remain calm on the surface. She has to show helplessness and fun as usual, and has to explain common sense to the stupid Miss Susan. She does this normal behavior less than. When Zhu Huntang stared at Yan Qingcheng immediately changed the topic to Lu Chang'an. Was it because she was thinking about things related to Lu Chang'an in her mind? This matter is Lu Chang'an equals Lu Jianxi. A wise man must always make mistakes. In other words, Lu Chang'an didn't really care that his dual identity would be discovered, and Zhu Huntang didn't care much either. After all, Yan Qingcheng was Lu Chang'an's other stepdaughter. This was what Zhu Huntang needed to be wary of. Looking at the whole world, whoever dares to compete with Bimei for favor will definitely head her with a goat's head, step on her with goat's hooves, and sit on her face with a goat's butt. At present, he has the first mover advantage. He got to know Lu Chang'an earlier than Yan Qingcheng. Moreover, his beauty, talent, and charisma are all better, and he has deeply captured Lu Chang'an's fatherly heart. When he saw beautiful women, cute children, etc., he wanted to be their father. But Zhu Huntang also has a disadvantage, that is, her mother is the leader of one of the most powerful evil forces in the world. She has probably done too many bad things and is not well regarded by Lu Chang'an. How to torture my? He cooperates very well with Lu Chang'an and tries to save his love. Zhu Huntang knows this very well, so he has to agree to cooperate with his mother. This is the overall view. An outstanding heir to a wealthy family has no overall view and only cares about the small profits in front of him. The most he is optimistic about is his own 3-acre land and control of the entire large group. That's not possible. Yan Qingcheng's advantage is that her mother is being pampered now, and Yan Hui is by Lu Chang'an's side. Just now when Zhu Huntang asked Lu Chang'an to talk about business, the grumpy old man obviously wanted to hit the screen with his head. At the same time, Yan Hui was leaning on Lu Chang'an's side. There is an obvious movement of the hand. That action was blocked by the tabletop. Maybe it was holding his other hand or something else under the tabletop to let him control his emotions. It's just that Qin Yan'an seems to have this action too. The sudden tacit understanding between these two women means that they have a good relationship, and neither of them avoids the fact that the other is too close to Lu Chang'an. Maybe they have all been sleeping together. Zhu Huntang is very angry. Qin Yan'an is indeed a traitor without principles. As long as Lu Chang'an likes her, she has no principles, no bottom line, no personality, and no friends. but the two of them went to shake each other's hand at the same time, and ended up holding each other's hand. Wouldn't it be awkward? Haha, after all, men are not like women. A nanny like Qinyanan can feed both of them at the same time if they give birth to twins. After laughing twice, Zhu Huntang felt bored again, and missed her grandma too. So Zhu Huntang sent a message to Bai Hui, asking her to come and take a nap with him. After the video call with Zhu Huntang, Lu Chang'an took Yan Hui to get to know Li Hongfang. Qinyanan had no interest in meeting Li Hongfang and stayed at home, touching her belly to cultivate her mind. Qinyanan feels that Li Hongfang is a bit stupid. She is loyal to Su Mei after receiving a little benefit from Su Mei. This is indeed commendable, but there is no need to offend her for Su Mei, right? Since you are following Lu Chang'an, don't you know what Qinyanan's status is in your brother's mind? If Qinyanan had Su Mei's temper, wouldn't she be able to pester her brother to separate your flesh and blood? But of course Qinyanan would not do that. She was not Su Mei. It was Su Mei's bottomless desire for exclusivity that made her and her brother drift apart, to both ends of the earth. The most uncomfortable thing to look at is Li Hongfang's figure, which looks like she was born purely to be a man's plaything. Ordinary gossip-loving women and sisters-in-law, when they see this kind of figure, will usually secretly spit, "Slut." Qinyanan's figure is also exaggerated, but her temperament is elegant, her appearance is delicate and upright, and her proportions are well proportioned. She is not at all the same type as Li Hongfang, who has wider hips than shoulders. After thinking about it, Qinyanan decided to call Zhu Huntang back and talk with her about slut Li Hongfang. This kind of thing is a common hobby of women. Lu Chang'an and Yan Hui came to the parking lot. Li Hongfang had already gotten out of the car and was chatting with a middle-aged woman in her 30s, probably less than 40. The middle-aged woman is well dressed, with a tall and plump figure. She wears a long satin skirt covered with black lace, a string of dazzling jewelry hanging on her chest, and a white jade bracelet engraved with Buddhist scriptures on her hand. Her whole body exudes wealth. Chi. Next to her was an energetic young man, wearing a crisp suit and gorgeous Baroque-style leather shoes, which reminded Lu Chang'an of the photos of technicians on the wall of the Alien Beasts Health Club. Not far from the middle-aged woman, there were two tall men who seemed to be bodyguards, but they had a somewhat unruly look on their eyes, more like Lian Jiazi, who was a temporary entourage. Lu Chang'an and Yan Hui stood far away. Li Hongfang came over. When the middle-aged woman saw Lu Chang'an and Yan Hui, her eyes lit up. She followed Li Hongfang and said with a smile, "Xiao Fang, this is your friend. This means that you want to get to know each other." The man is elegant and mature. Although he is old, he is tall and strong, with deep eyes and restrained light. The woman is gentle and charming, obviously mature and charming, but her eyes are a bit charming and naive. Who wouldn't want to get to know such a couple? Lu Jianxi, Yan Hui. Lu Chang'an introduced himself, but turned a blind eye to the middle-aged woman's extended hand. She smelled good, but her breath was messy and unpleasant. Lu Jianxi, the name couldn't be more ordinary, but the middle-aged woman thought for a moment and then smiled. "Hello, I am Qin Minglin. Were you once a professor of biology at Shonan University, Professor Lu?" Lu Chang'an nodded, and Yan Hui was not surprised. The teacher was relatively high profile at Hunan University except when he was fighting and making troubles. He was relatively low-key at other times, but he attracted much attention in the international academic and professional fields. It has been famous for a long time. Qin Minglin smiled, hesitated, and said to Yan Hui, "Ms. Yan, I made you laugh. I saw Professor Lu was a little excited. One of my elders has been asking about Professor Lu. News, but I only got some false rumors. I didn't expect to see him in person today. Are Miss Qin's elders also paying attention to insulin or something?" Li Hongfang thought of Li Jiama. The things these rich and powerful people care about are nothing more than prolonging life and immortality. No, it has nothing to do with insulin. Qin Minglin shook her head, did not continue, and said to Lu Chang'an, Professor Lu, can you leave your contact information? You can contact me at any time through Xiaofang. Lu Chang'an pointed to Li Hongfang, and then pulled Yan Hui into the car first. Li Hongfang and Qin Minglin said a few more words before driving away. That day when we were at Iwan Pavilion, we heard Jin Ho and Zhang Zhonggai talking about Miss Qin. She was probably this one, Lu Chang'an said to Yan Hui in the back seat. Ah, Yan Hui was slightly shocked. Later, the teacher never mentioned these two people to him again, but obviously the teacher had already taken care of it. It's her, but Professor Lu, how did you guess it? Li Hongfang had been chatting with Qin Minglin for a while, and he heard Qin Minglin's intention of coming to Junsha without asking. In front of Yan Hui, Li Hongfang didn't want Brother Lu or the sect leader to shout randomly, so he had to follow everyone and call him Professor Lu. But now Li Hongfang couldn't help but became confused. He used to think that Professor Lu Jianxi was just Lu Chang'an's cover identity, but now he feels that could it be that Professor Lu Jianxi is the real person and Lu Chang'an is covering his identity? The two followers behind her are practicing martial arts in the same way as Zhang Zhonggai. Lu Chang'an explained, you seem to be very familiar with her. Qin Minglin is very well connected in Zonghai. She can eat anything white or gray. I have used her to wash goods before. The price is quite reasonable. The key is that the channel is safe. Later, I also collected some calligraphy and paintings from her. Li Hongfang said. From the parking lot when I drove out, I saw Qin Minglin standing on the roadside waving goodbye, and she also smiled and waved in the car. She continued, I just met her. I greeted her and casually asked her how she was doing. She then told her why she came to Junsha and said that she recommended someone to help a friend with something, but the recommended person disappeared. That friend is also crazy. She said it in such detail. Is she doubting you? Yan Hui asked worriedly. That's not true. She thinks I have a lot of connections and is well informed. Maybe she can get clues by asking me. Li Hongfang laughed as she said that. Of course she had clues, but she just told Qin Minglin. With Qin Minglin's appearance, it is difficult to get forgiveness from the sect leader, and he might be put in a urn. Lu Chang'an nodded and didn't take it seriously. It was just a small force. Junsha was already in chaos. If there were more of her, there wouldn't be too much, and if there was less of her, there wouldn't be too much. Sorry, the cold actually only got better yesterday, but it has recurred again today. I am very uncomfortable. I will start a bigger chapter tomorrow when I feel better. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 920. Li Hongfang also talked about Qin Minglin's background. Qin Minglin belonged to a branch of the Zonghai Qin family. The Zonghai Qin family and the Jinling Qin family were not the same thing. They were the same family 500 years ago, probably in the Ming dynasty. Have a common ancestor. Lu Changxin thought that this was good, otherwise he would have to give Qin Peng some face. He would inevitably be soft-hearted when destroying flowers with ruthless hands. He might use Li Hongfang's custom-made clay pot from Zhuzhu Fenglai Sword Gate to show his friendship. I hope Qin Minglin will not do anything to embarrass Lu Chang'an. After all, he is not too embarrassed to mention the core socialist values because of what he has done recently. Teacher Yan, I really admire you. Li Hongfang showed an expression of sincere admiration. My dream was to be a teacher, but my temper was really not very good. It was enough for me to spank my children, but it would be difficult for me to restrain myself when teaching them. I watched many videos on the internet of teachers who were angry with children and vomited blood, and I was a little lucky that I still had self-awareness. Although Yan Hui seems to have a good relationship with Qin Yinan and still lives in Qin Yinan's home, Li Hongfang's attitude towards Yan Hui is completely different. Firstly, Yan Hui is not Miss Su's mortal enemy. Secondly, teachers who can adhere to hardship and poverty and devote themselves to education are worthy of respect. The most important thing is of course the attitude of the door owner. Apart from An Nuan, this seems to be the only person to whom the door owner takes the initiative to send things, provide materials, and practical help. Under normal circumstances, it was other women who came to give him gifts, greet him, and please him. For example, Miss Su wanted to give the suit of armor to him, but he didn't want it. When chatting with Zhou Shuling, she mentioned that Qin Yanan gave him a house full of electrical appliances, as well as many big-name luxury shoes, clothing, and watches. Zhou Shuling also revealed a lot of important information to Li Hongfang intentionally or unintentionally. For example, Shang Guandandan was really poor, and she would accept whatever you gave her. This is indeed a grueling job. People with weak livers are better off not to be teachers, Yan Hui said with a smile. In fact, over the years, she has seen many young people who came to teach with enthusiasm. Most of them, as Li Hongfang said, ideals are just ideals, and reality cannot be tolerated. It comes and goes, but not many stick to it. You are in good health now. Come to Junsha from time to time and I will help you continue to nurse yourself back to health. Lu Chang'an sat in the back with Yan Hui and looked at her body. In fact, when he first saw her, he checked outside of her body. She had problems with her liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Diseases of these organs are often connected together, and the mortality rate after causing cancer is extremely high. Yes, Yan Hui lowered her head and responded softly, holding the back of his hand involuntarily. Li Hongfang noticed an ambiguous atmosphere stirring in the back compartment, and couldn't help but feel a little itchy. What kind of recuperation was this? Li Hongfang wanted to get involved. Professor Lu, my health is not good, can you help me take care of myself? Li Hongfang couldn't help but said, in front of Yan Hui, he couldn't be too favorable. What's wrong with your body? Lu Chang'an felt that her body was so good that people couldn't help but want to beat her and make her hurt a little. That aunt is not quite sure. She is depressed, easily irritable, a little insomniac, her skin is dry, and her eyes are dull. Li Hongfang racked her brains to think of something wrong. Miss Li, are you single now? After hearing the symptoms Li Hongfang described, Yan Hui knew exactly what was going on. Single women would have these symptoms, Li Hongfang said, and Yan Hui had been in this state for many years. Yes, it was settled naturally after meeting the teacher again. Yes, Li Hongfang replied with some regret. She is already past the age of late marriage, so she is considered a leftover woman. According to Chinese laws and regulations, a man who is over 25 years old and a woman who is over 23 years old are considered to be married late. You can resolve these symptoms by finding a boyfriend, Yan Hui said with certainty. Boyfriend? Can an electric one be used? Li Hongfang nodded with understanding. She really wanted to tell Yan Hui that if she wanted to borrow her teacher, she could exchange Li Hongfang's boyfriend for her. Yan Hui was stunned for a moment before she understood what Li Hongfang was talking about. She couldn't help but blush and pinched the back of the teacher's hand a little harder. She didn't expect that the woman the teacher introduced to her would be so open and casual. Ha ha. Li Hongfang laughed. She saw through the rearview mirror that the door owner just glared at her but didn't say anything. Li Hongfang couldn't help but want to tell a few more dirty jokes to adjust the atmosphere. It's better not to say it anymore. This teacher Yan is a serious woman. If she tells dirty jokes now, the atmosphere will not be stirred up. It's better to wait until she and the master of the house are alone before telling her again. After getting off the car in the parking lot of Li Hongfang's hotel, Li Hongfang took Yan Hui to see the Ford F-150. To Li Hongfang's surprise, Yan Hui was not intimidated by the big car like many women did. She doubted that she could control it, and just said that she needed to just get a driver's license. According to Yan Hui's wishes, she hoped that Li Hongfang would donate the car to the school, but Li Hongfang laughed. If he really donated it to the school, it would be hard to say whether Yan Hui could use it in the end. Yan Hui reacted immediately. She had worked at the grassroots level for so many years. It was not that she had not thought of this. She just felt that it was not good to accept such an expensive gift in her own name. Li Hongfang thought of a compromise plan. The car could be donated to a charity foundation managed by Qin Yanan, and then the charity foundation would authorize Yan Hui to use it, so that the school or someone in the local area wanted to take away the car. There is no reason anymore. I kind of understand why so many rich people like to engage in charity, Li Hongfang said with some emotion. We have done too many bad things, but donating some money and goods can actually make us feel more at ease. It's so worthwhile. Really? Since you can do bad things to the point of doing charity, why would you feel uneasy? They are just laundering money, and their level is higher than yours. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Ah, there are still few such people. Most people do charity to do good deeds and accumulate virtue, right? Yan Hui said in surprise. Yeah. Yan Hui was a little depressed. The teacher and Li Hongfang actually dealt with her together, as if they were too lazy to understand her, an ignorant country girl. It's just that Li Hongfang added after which gave people a slightly better feeling. After coming out of the hotel, Li Hongfang accompanied Lu Chang'an and Yan Hui to visit the former degenerate street, which is now Lashai's civilized street. On July 20, 2008, Fallen Street was crushed by bulldozers that came in. Now it no longer feels a little abject and decadent, but it has more fireworks and youthful feeling, Lu Chang'an said with emotion. Yan Hui still wanted to take a look, and turned her head to look at the teacher curiously. Are the dance halls, billiard halls, and game halls where you old professors used to hang out all the time? It's gone, as usual, not even a dust is left behind, Lu Chang'an said with a smile. Professor Lu, why do you often go to those places? Are you what people often say in the past? Li Hongfang looked at Lu Chang'an's waist and butt. He must have left a lot of romance here back then, just this waist and this butt, swaying and twisting wildly in the song and dance hall. How many lustful girls who were not yet seduced rushed up to dance with him. Presumably this kind of song and dance hall back then was more exciting than the bar street in Jifang West now. It should be the dialect pronunciation of street, and Liuzi means gangster. It describes the kind of people who wander around with nothing to do all day long. It may not be considered a gangster or something like that. Sometimes when something urgent happens in the department, I always come here to look for him, going from dance hall to billiard hall and so on. At that time, there were often some idle people in front of such stores. It was quite okay for me as a girl to go in. It takes courage, Yan Hui couldn't help laughing as she recalled it. Although she was no longer young, her mood was no longer filled with uneasy secret love, and she couldn't help but sigh when she thought about it. Li Hongfang also laughed. This is how a serious woman uses a secretive tone when she associates herself with some depraved places. Li Hongfang went to a bar when she was a girl, and there was a local gangster whom she already knew. This piece of shit actually he drugged her wine glass. After being discovered by Li Hongfang, he led others to dig up all the ancestral graves in his family. Actually, Fallen Street is not degenerate at all. On the contrary, it is very safe and clean, at least much cleaner than the bar street in Jifang West now. Fallen Street is basically filled with students, and some who have just entered society are still a little uncomfortable or have suffered setbacks. Many people stay here temporarily. The rich entertainment activities, low cost of living, and campus atmosphere familiar to young people make it so popular. The bad thing is that someone gave it such a nickname. Lu Chang'an felt a little regretful. Fallen Street doesn't have that flavor anymore. Lu Chang'an and An Nuan have no place to cause trouble, so they can only beat up a few people on campus. Then why was it rebuilt? Li Hongfang asked as he walked into what was once a decadent street and is now a civilized street. It became famous because of the report of China Youth Daily at that time. Although China Youth Daily publicly apologized in the end, the impact was already caused. This name made many students and parents full of anxiety. The reporter at the time was named Luo. Now he has become the vice president of that newspaper. Lu Chang'an flipped through the web page on his mobile phone, and it was difficult to find specific information. You actually apologized. Today's media are all making up nonsense. I think many media in our country are soft to the outside world and slow to the outside world. The domestic media we encountered in Afghanistan in 2015, no, it's nothing. Li Hongfang discovered. Yan Hui listened attentively and quickly shut up. In Afghanistan? Miss Li, have you ever been to such a chaotic place? Although Yan Hui is not a flower in a greenhouse, she was born in a peaceful environment in the country. A place like Afghanistan gave her the feeling that she would be beaten when she went out. Beaten to death, not beaten to death. Seeing militants or gun battles everywhere makes me feel weak when walking. Well, I'm actually a Song Dynasty painting collector, and I also work part-time as a freelance archaeologist. At that time, I got the news that there was a tomb of the living dead or something like that, so I went to dig, and went to do the archaeology. Li Hongfang covered it up easily. And at the same time, she has already thought about the development direction of the 10 stories. As long as Yan Hui continues to ask, she can keep telling them. The corners of Lu Chang'an's mouth curled up slightly. Free archaeology was a word that was used in seconds. Tomb of the living dead? Is it like Xianzui's tomb? Yan Hui's curiosity was aroused by Li Hongfang. In war-torn Afghanistan, a beautiful woman who is a Song Dynasty painting collector and part-time archaeologist, Tomb of the Living Dead, is just like being in a TV series. No, it doesn't have as long a history and archaeological value as Xianzui's tomb. It mainly involves the wonderful state of the living dead and the mystery of immortality. In the end, we found out that it was a fake thing made by those guys in Europe and America. Why are they making fake things? Isn't your trip in vain? Because 2015 was the year when the excavation of Hai Hanyu's tomb achieved initial results, and the things unearthed shocked the world. Those people in Europe and America routinely build one to show that I am more awesome, and it must be better than your Chinese history. Older and more magical. Li Hongfang couldn't help but want to spit. It wasn't that her love for the country's long history was hurt, but that these guys made it up in a decent way and the official agencies cooperated, which made Li Hongfang's escape in vain. Once, at that time, she had already begun to enter Su Mei's eyes and was being manipulated to do things. Lu Chang'an patted Li Hongfang on the shoulder to express comfort. Xiaofang is indeed Xiaofang, and she also knows how to adapt to the mood of the sect master unintentionally. The tomb of Hai Hunho is certainly a sensation in the world. In the mouths of An Nuan and Professor Lu, it seems that there is nothing not the same. In fact, when An Nuan and Professor Lu talked about the tomb of Marquis Hai Hun, they also thought it was very valuable, but they always liked to use other tombs to show that the tomb of Marquis Hai Hun was not as powerful as others, which left a worse impression on Lu Chang'an. Li Hongfang felt Lu Chang'an's comfort, and suddenly felt that the door owner was a little considerate today. While Yan Hui was thinking about something, she put her hand on Lu Chang'an's waist, wanting to touch and squeeze it, but Lu Chang'an opened it. Li Hongfang was a little worried. It was becoming increasingly difficult for him to control himself. One day he would be unable to help but take action directly. He didn't know if the door owner would give in half-heartedly or turn against the guests and use provocation to calm down. Ah, we seem to have walked the entire street. Yan Hui looked up, and then looked back to find that the street had no appearance at all in his memory. Not every time I look back suddenly, I see that familiar dimly lit place. Lu Chang'an sighed with her. The person who cares most is, after all, the person in the dimly lit place. Yan Hui's heart moved slightly. Yes, the teacher was right. Not to mention this decadent street, the entire Juncha was no longer what she was familiar with. Fortunately, when she looked back, she saw that person in the dimly lit place. He's still close at hand, and that's more important than anything else. Yan Hui leaned into the teacher's arms, pressed her cheek against his chest, closed her eyes and breathed in his breath. Although the teacher didn't say it clearly, she would get a little favor from him in the rest of her life, right? Lu Chang'an raised his head. Yan Hui used the same shampoo as Qin Yanan, which made him feel a little dazed. The same smell, the same thin waist and tentacles. He turned his head, only to find Li Hongfang winking at him. Li Hongfang pointed at the other half of Lu Chang'an's chest, then clasped his hands together and put them next to his cheek, saying that he also wanted to lean on him, but Lu Chang'an refused. He was really messy and didn't know the time. If he was alone with her and she suddenly came closer, Lu Chang'an would probably press her face and push her away after 3 seconds, but now Yan Hui is in a lyrical mood. In this state, are you playing games? Handsome men and beautiful women were hugging each other, but Li Hongfang was not allowed to lean over. She felt bored and walked a little to the side, only to see several policemen walking over with Jinho in a wheelchair. The policemen were looking at the map on their mobile phones. It was still the route, pointing and pointing, but Jinho tilted his head in a daze, as if he was mentally ill. Oh, he was mentally ill to begin with. I once again say sorry to the leader of Liang Daji, I will update it tomorrow, and I won't come out to refund the money and lick the cat's ass. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 921. People often call their incomprehensible or unacceptable behavior neurosis to describe some of the symptoms of mental patients. It seems that people often confuse the symptoms of neurosis and mental illness, but in the sentence mental patients have more happiness, everyone clearly knows what mental illness is. If there is a mental patient in the family, it is actually a very heavy burden, not only financially, but also psychologically. It's just the kind of natural one, this kind of acquired mental illness. Looking at him now, such absurd and incomprehensible words and deeds, compared with him in his normal life, everyone shed tears and felt heartache, Lu Chang'an said understandably. Sending to a mental hospital is almost the only relief, but in fact only mental illness with mild symptoms can be treated. Even so, there is still the possibility of relapse at any time, and some serious mental illnesses are difficult to treat. Horror stories about mental hospitals, it has also been made into horror movies many times, Li Hongfang also said with some emotion. Yan Hui woke up from the sweet memories. She also saw the patient in the wheelchair. She looked at the teacher and Li Hongfang, who were singing in harmony with some confusion. They seemed to sympathize with each other. But my impression is that the teacher is not a compassionate person. He even has a record of beating the old, weak, sick, and disabled. What's more, Yan Hui heard that Jinho and another person were planning to deal with Lu Chang'an's poor child. He had a bad heart and no mother. The teacher didn't seem to be with him often, so Yan Hui was not interested in Jinho in front of him. There was no sympathy at all. But Yan Hui suddenly recalled what the teacher said that night. In the end, the teacher seemed to decide to deal with the matter by himself. With the teacher's miraculous methods, it seemed that it would not be difficult to turn the other party into a psychopath. Thinking of this, Yan Hui couldn't help but she looked over there again to avoid attracting the attention of the police. She was not very timid and easily showed her timidity. The three of them continued to walk forward. The police took Jinho and were searching for clues or witnesses along the street based on the location information on Jinho's mobile phone. When the two sides passed each other, Jinho suddenly shouted to Li Hongfang with a smile, "She is White Snake, I am Su Xian, I want Sun Snake." "Bah, you're the only one who wants to marry Su Xian. You can't even live with a cauliflower snake, but you still want White Snake," Li Hongfang sneered, and threw the crocodile skin bag at Jinho. Fortunately, there were many people around. The middle-aged man pushing Jinho was Jinho's uncle Lu Songqing. He hurriedly blocked Li Hongfang's bag and said, "Beauty, don't be offended." He was a little stimulated and his brain is not very good now. Seeing the beauty just call her White Snake. We are looking for clues and relevant personal and material evidence. Have you seen this person? The police comrade explained while taking out a photo for Li Hongfang to identify. Li Hongfang stared at the photo for a long time, and then showed a thoughtful expression. The police and Jin Ho's uncle Lu Songqing both looked at Li Hongfang intently. After a while, Li Hongfang asked, "What did this man do to make him think about snakes? Is it because he was hit by a snake-like object, violation, so you have a stress reaction?" The policeman and Lu Songqing were both speechless and asked patiently, "This has nothing to do with you. Have you ever seen this person?" "Of course not." The police comrades glanced at her and didn't bother to get to know her. Some people just like to join in the fun and add drama to themselves, and have no concept of obstructing the police in their minds. Most of these people are ants who are idle in the city. This woman in front of him is beautiful. She is beautiful and well dressed, but her quality is too low. Lu Songqing walked a step slower, and handed a business card to Li Hongfang with a smile. Li Hongfang thought that she was also a serious businessman now, and the manager of Tang Tang rice noodle shop should also have an ordinary social circle, so she returned a business card to Li Hongfang. Social business card. Lu Songqing took a look at Li Hongfang's business card. Such a young and beautiful woman with a somewhat coquettish temperament was actually a collector and archaeologist. He wanted to get to know the man and woman standing quietly next to him. From Lu Songqing's perspective, this so-called collector and archaeologist was probably just a follower of the middle-aged and elderly man. This man was tall, with a particularly outstanding temperament. Her status is definitely much higher than that of the woman named Li Hongfang. It's just that the other party relied on his identity and had no intention of getting acquainted with Lu Songqing. The two groups of people passed by each other. Li Hongfang twisted her waist and said to Lu Chang'an with a little excitement, "Professor Lu, you said he still remembers White Snake. Does that mean my figure and beauty impressed him so much that he was crazy and couldn't forget it? Are you proud of being the object of a madman's fantasy?" Lu Chang'an gave her a roll of his eyes. Li Hongfang suddenly felt bored. Lu Chang'an accompanied Yan Hui around Xiongnan University in the afternoon, and also walked around Normal University and Xiongnan University of Technology. Several schools have changed drastically, especially the heavily rebuilt University of Technology, which seems to have completely lost its appearance in memory. Passing by the International Supercomputing Junsha Center, I also found some interesting private restaurants nearby, decorated like a secluded farmhouse. The prices were not as high-end as the one Professor Lu took me to last time, but looking at them it seems to be pretty good. I made an appointment with Yan Hui to come back for a meal and a drink when I have time. Li Hongfang put down a deposit of 10,000 yuan, with only one requirement: don't wait in line to make a reservation. The owner of the restaurant must get it when he wants to come, otherwise he will be responsible for the consequences. 10,000 yuan is not much, and it is not enough for the store to feel obliged to cater to distinguished customers. However, this woman is obviously used to being arrogant and has offended a very troublesome owner. Doing business and being angry makes money, so the store has to close the private restaurant first. That set of marketing strategies. After shopping, Li Hongfang sent Yan Hui back to Lushan Mountain. Lu Chang'an found a secluded place on the road and returned to his normal college appearance. There were 4 people surrounding the electric heating table: Shang Guandandan, Zhou Shuling, and 2 primary school students. Zhou Shuling is helping Song Dazi with her homework, while Shang Guandandan is in charge of Zhou Dongdong. Lu Chang'an stood at the door and couldn't help but be blinded by the light of wisdom emanating from them. He stood for 10 seconds before walking in. However, considering that they might ask Lu Chang'an to help them with their homework, Lu Chang'an said nothing and did not dampen their interest in learning. After changing into slippers, he sat next to Zhou Shuling and took out the remote control from under her buttocks to watch TV. "I'm back." Zhou Shuling glanced at Lu Chang'an, continued to hold her cheek with her hands, frowned, and thought hard. Brother Chang'an, can you help us with the questions? It feels like the four of us are getting slower and slower, even slower than when Dong Dong and I help each other, Songdazi said to Lu Chang'an. Brother Chang'an doesn't study all day long. Zhou Dongdong said that Songdazi should not place her hopes on Brother Chang'an. Zhou Dongdong is the only one in the family who is studying hard and is the hope of the whole family. Although Zhou Dongdong was ranked last in the class, he was ranked first when he returned home. Seeing that Lu Chang'an had come back, Shang Guandandan breathed a sigh of relief, wiped the sweat from his forehead, shrank under the table little by little, climbed to the computer table without attracting attention, and then climbed up on the chair. Turn on the computer and start clicking the Steam icon with the mouse. Lu Chang'an watched Shang Guandandan crawl away without calling her, and said to Zhou Dongdong, I don't study all day because I have learned almost all the knowledge I should learn. I look like you all day long. Is it the same thing to be studying but actually not learning anything? I haven't learned anything. Zhou Dongdong was shocked. He obviously worked very hard, but it was only a little less than the effort of flapping his arms to learn to fly. Isn't it obvious that Lu Chang'an couldn't understand Zhou Dongdong's shock? Lu Chang'an met Songdazi's hopeful eyes and looked at the questions they were working on. Wearing a red hat and a white robe, he walks with airs and stretches his neck when talking. Guess the answer is, A. Big rooster, B. Little goat, C. Big white goose. After Lu Chang'an finished reading the question, he turned his head and looked at Zhou Shuling, whose neck was getting more and more crooked and her body was getting crooked, and she was about to lean on him. She has been pretending to meditate on feelings, but she is actually dozing off. Coupled with the other Shang Guandandan who also likes to pretend to do his best, it is no wonder that Songdazi feels that the four of them are slower than when she and Zhou Dongdong are together. Lu Chang'an sighed. Fortunately, he was here. Otherwise, these people would be eliminated by society in a short time, right? For this question, you first read the first sentence, which is wearing a red hat. In other words, the small animal in the riddle has a distinctive feature, that is, it has a red thing on its head, which excludes the little goat. Lu Chang'an began to explain, the elimination method is a question-solving method that must be mastered. The basic logic contained in it can cultivate the thinking method for normal life in society. Then what's the answer? What should we eat tonight? Zhou Dongdong looked at Lu Chang'an expectantly. Okay. Then you have to get the answer first. According to the first sentence, the baby goat is excluded. The second sentence is about wearing a white robe. What characteristics do you think this is about the animal? Lu Chang'an asked. It's a white animal, Songdazi answered quickly. Zhou Dongdong looked up at the ceiling, wiped the corners of his mouth, and suddenly began to recite a poem, Goose, goose, song to the sky, dear water in Baimao Lake, clear waves with horizontal palms. I want to eat goose, and the answer is the big white goose. Lu Chang'an was a little helpless. Although the answer was correct, but, forget it, he was about to explain the characteristics of the animals in the question when Zhou Shuling suddenly woke up and said, Ah, the answer is the big white goose. I think so too, but Dandan has too. They said there are also white roosters, well, they also walk waddlingly and stretch their necks when they croak, so we couldn't argue. Is the rooster crowing like a croak? Why don't I think it's different? You can crow a few more times and I'll listen. Lu Chang'an expressed doubts that this is not how the rooster crows. Oh, oh. Zhou Shuling called out twice and then stopped. She punched him several times angrily to tease her. Songdazi looked at it with some envy, but also a little worried. She didn't know if Brother Chang'an and Aunt Zhou would fight at night. In the past, her father and mother separated because of fights. Quack, squeak, squeak. Shang Guandandan also shouted. Dan Dan, what are you calling? Someone else screamed, which made Zhou Shuling, who had just learned how to crow, feel less stupid. That's how the rooster crows, Shang Guandandan said with certainty. Where is that? There is a kind of milk candy called oh milk candy. If the rooster crows like this, then why isn't it called quack milk candy? Ouch milk candy, Zhou Shuling was very confused. She originally knew the sound of the big rooster. But Shang Guandandan called him a little unsure. What kind of toffee? Zhou Dongdong asked with concern. Song Dazi clenched her fist and wiped Zhou Dongdong's mouth. Under the stimulation of the big white goose and toffee, Song Dazi knew that her good friend's saliva was about to flow out. The rooster is indeed what Shang Guandandan crows. Lu Chang'an finally confirmed. The sound of the big rooster's crow is actually a series of ups and down syllables, and oh is just the reverberation of the series of syllables. With Lu Chang'an's endorsement, everyone was sure of the rooster's crow. For a while, the sound of imitating the rooster's crow came and went in the living room, making people think they had entered the chicken coop by mistake. At this time, Song Dazi's mother poked her head at the door with a face full of suspicion, and saw that her children were stiffening their necks and imitating the crow of a chicken. The same was true for Zhou Dongdong. There was also a girl sitting next to the computer who screamed more pleasantly. Song Taozi's mother couldn't help but be surprised and at a loss. Is this some kind of cult ritual? Here we come. Zhou Shuling quickly stood up to greet Song Dazi's mother, patted the table to signal Zhou Dongdong and Song Dazi to stop, and explained awkwardly, we are doing a question, and there is a question related to the big rooster. In fact, the children are in the city. I grew up here and don't know much about the crow of a big rooster. I'll do some science education with Chang'an. That's it. I drove into the community and walked over to the address you sent me. When I heard Dazi's voice, I came up by myself. Song Dazi's mother covered her mouth and laughed. No wonder Zhou Dongdong's grades were so he is no different from his own children, but he is active and carefree all day long. This is the emotional family atmosphere. Her eyes fell on Lu Chang'an. She didn't know what his relationship was with Zhou Shuling. She only knew that Zhou Dongdong called him Chang'an brother, so he shouldn't be Zhou Shuling's man. Otherwise, Zhou Shuling would have taught Zhou Dongdong to call him uncle. Song Dazi's mother thought about her own affairs and felt sad. She didn't expect that Shenbin was such a scumbag. Fortunately, Song Dazi and Zhou Dongdong were together, and they seemed to be infected with that strength, and did not become weak because of being hurt. She is frightened and even depressed. Rather than playing with children with excellent grades, she hopes that her daughter can play with children with average grades like Zhou Dongdong, who are very poor, but have good qualities, excellent personalities, and full of sunshine, so that they can have better mental health. Grow up. This is also a reason for Song Dazi's mother to treat her guests today. The closer contact between adults will help the children to establish a better friendship. Through Shenbin's incident, Song Dazi's mother has woken up. There is really no need to rush to find someone else now. Half of it, if Song Dazi was hurt, she would truly regret it and affect her for the rest of her life. Men, they are dispensable. Mother Song Dazi, I am very well informed in the community and know a lot of people. Some of my poker friends have pretty good children. I will help you choose carefully tomorrow and ask around. Shang Guandanba said. He unplugged the computer and turned it off, then turned around and said to Song Dazi's mother. Song Dazi's mother's name is Wang Meng. When Wang Meng picked up Song Dazi, she occasionally saw Shang Guandandan pushing an electric scooter outside the school gate, but after picking up Zhou Dongdong, she never saw her riding one. We'll only work together with Zhou Dongdong to push the electric car back. We knew each other, but when I heard Shang Guandandan speak like this, I just felt embarrassed and funny. I nodded and didn't know what to say to the little girl. Shang Guandandan knew that Motzi was not interested in Wang Meng, so he did not examine him according to the standard of daughter-in-law. The words he just said reflected the Queen Mother's extremely high language skills, implying that the other party should not have Lu Chang'an's ideas, only others could. There are options available, I hope she can understand. I heard that you invited me to dinner, so I came back specially to have a meal. Daisy and Dong Dong want to eat goose, and the three of us can eat whatever we want, Lu Chang'an said to Wang Meng. Fortunately, Wang Meng seemed to have a good income, otherwise everyone has to help her save some money. Want? You can eat it freely to suit your own family's appetite, but most people will feel heartache. You must know that even Zhong Qing once said that fortunately she had a good income, otherwise it would be very stressful for Zhou Dongdong and Lu Chang'an to have late-night snacks with Shang Guandandan. Today, I also added Zhou Shuling, a go-getter who is trying to lose weight at home and eat less in order not to waste anything outside. What a coincidence, I booked a goose restaurant. It's popular to eat goose now. Wang Meng smiled. How about we set off now? Good. The group set out for the goose pavilion. Wang Meng drove the Audi he got back from Shenbin, Lu Chang'an sat in the passenger seat, and Zhou Shuling squeezed into the back seat. Shang Guandandan and the two children were also about the same size. After all, Zhou Dongdong weighed the most. The number is huge, but the size is still relatively normal and that of a child. Arriving at the goose restaurant, she sat in the outermost box with the door open. Wang Meng ordered goose stewed in a casserole, stir-fried goose with yellow throat, tofu braised with goose blood, and pufferfish Buddha jumping over the wall. Then she asked Lu Chang'an and Zhou Shuling to add more dishes. Lu Chang'an ordered fried pork with ground vegetables, which was difficult to eat. He felt that the portion was a bit small, so he ordered 2 portions. Zhou Shuling only added 1 vegetable. What did you order? Zhou Shuling was used to sitting next to Lu Chang'an and asked in a low voice, pulling on his sleeve. Dai pai vegetable, which looks like soaked fungus, is also called fungus. It is a kind of nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria. During the growth and reproduction process, it can continuously discharge nitrogen-containing compounds such as amino acids and peptides, which greatly increases soil fertility. It is a kind of nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria. They add nutrients to the land and eat the excellent organisms that add nutrients to people. I order this dish because I hope that Daisy and Dongdong, like nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria, will shine at all times and be useful people. Lu Chang'an, like an old-school parent, speaks some auspicious words and motivational words at family gatherings and other occasions. Brother Chang'an, are you saying that when we grow up, we will be eaten by you? Zhou Dongdong concluded without fear. Brother Chang'an always likes to talk a lot, and then Zhou Dongdong can't listen. Understood. Brother Chang'an is not a monster, so why would he eat us? Besides, you are Sun Wukong, so you don't have to be afraid of monsters. Song Daisy comforted Zhou Dongdong and told her not to be afraid. Wang Meng and Zhou Shuling both laughed. Lu Chang'an did not answer Zhou Dongdong's question, because even if she answered her question, she must have more stupid questions to ask. Although it was Song Daisy who mentioned monsters, Shang Guandandan suspected that Lu Chang'an was leading the conversation to imply that she was a monster, so she did not want to speak to avoid attracting more attention from Lu Chang'an, and put the thermos on the table to block her from him. In between, and then silently finished the side dishes in front of him. The dishes started to be served soon, and the first dish was a goose stewed in a clay pot. The taste was naturally worse than Lu Chang'an's, but the flavor was different. Apart from a little too much pepper, there was nothing wrong with it. When everyone was sweating profusely from eating, Song Daisy suddenly shouted out the door, "Dad!" Wang Meng also glanced outside the door indifferently, and saw a man walking in. He greeted everyone with a smile, then picked up Song Daisy and said to Wang Meng, "What a coincidence, I didn't expect you to still get used to it, a treat at this place." Wang Meng introduced the others, Lu Chang'an, Zhou Shuling, and Shang Guandandan. Zhou Shuling looked at Song Daisy's father and Wang Meng standing and talking, and then tugged on Lu Chang'an's sleeve, indicating that he and her would exchange glances. Lu Chang'an gave Zhou Shuling some goose paws and motioned for her to eat his. It could be seen that Wang Meng had a plan for today's meal and reserved place. She was probably stimulated by Shenbin to figure out some things. It's rare that I'm free tomorrow. Daisy hasn't gone to an amusement park with her parents for a long time. How about going to play tomorrow? Wang Meng suggested casually. Okay, I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. Song Daisy's father hesitated for a moment, looking at his daughter's hopeful eyes. He couldn't refuse at all. Song Daisy's father smiled and chatted with the others, then went back to his private room to socialize. Wang Meng still looked calm. What is strange is that Song Daisy did not become active or in high spirits, but seemed to be forced to suppress the joy in your heart and act normal. Daisy is a gentle child, Shang Guandandan whispered. Lu Chang'an also nodded. Zhou Shuling was not aroused by Song Daisy's tenderness, and felt sad in her heart. Zhou Dongdong had already entered the barrier, and Zhou Shuling didn't care at all about the chance of the other party's family getting back together. She was already used to Lu Chang'an being around, and was not interested in marriage and reorganization. There are no expectations for family or anything. It's just that the other party didn't express his happiness wantonly and took care of other people's emotions, which was a very quality performance. Although Song Daisy experienced a family breakup, she still had a good upbringing, or she was born with a delicate, sensitive, and gentle mind. With his personality, it's no wonder that he became Zhou Dongdong's good friend. After dinner, Wang Meng warmly invited Zhou Dongdong to go to the amusement park tomorrow, but Lu Chang'an said he wanted to take Zhou Dongdong to Nanshan, so he had to regretfully refuse. Where is Nanshan? Nanshan is in the western Hunan area and is a high mountain platform grassland. The prairie, are there many cattle and sheep? Can I ride a horse and shoot arrows? Can I just eat roasted lamb or something? That. Don't hint, I didn't say I won't take you there. Faced with Zhou Shuling's series of questions, Lu Chang'an didn't know that his little mother also wanted to go with him. He was afraid that Lu Chang'an would only take Zhou Dongdong with him and not her. Zhou Shuling blushed, lowered her head and pulled Lu Chang'an's sleeves up the stairs. There was Shang Guandandan lying on Lu Chang'an's back, and Zhou Dongdong was tucked under his arm. Zhu Huntang agreed to invest in the charity foundation on the condition that Lu Chang'an went to play with her. Lu Chang'an decided to leave tonight and come back tomorrow afternoon. Qin Yinan happened to be attending a training class for pregnant women in the evening. After resting at home for a while, Zhou Shuling packed some luggage, took a large suitcase, and asked Lu Chang'an to check what else he needed to bring. Lu Chang'an flipped through it casually and took out Zhou Shuling's change of underwear. Zhou Shuling blushed and quickly pushed away from him to tidy up herself. Why are you bringing a bag of meat buns? Lu Chang'an took out a large bag of meat buns. What should I do if I get hungry later in the evening? Dandan likes to eat meat buns. If there is no food that suits her taste, she will be very happy to eat this. As a thrifty, smart, and good at taking care of others, the little daughter-in-law certainly has her own thoughtful consideration. That's Zhu Huntang's place. If Shang Guandandan is hungry, she can send a helicopter to buy supper. Do you need your meat buns? Lu Chang'an put the meat buns on the table. Shang Guandandan, who was in a daze after eating and drinking, reached out and took the bag of meat buns on the table into his arms. Zhou Shuling burst into laughter and looked at Lu Chang'an with some pride. She had to take it with her in the end, right? Do you have any late-night snacks? Zhou Dongdong, who was lying on the other end of the sofa, sat upright and searched everywhere for objects that seemed to be late-night snacks with his eyes wide open. Zhou Shuling walked over and poked Zhou Dongdong's belly with her finger, causing Zhou Dongdong to lie down again, knowing that she would eat without even looking at her belly button, which was about to burst. Zhou Shuling took another pair of running cards and playing cards. Dandan plays cards every day. If she doesn't find it fun, Zhou Shuling can also play cards with her. Are there any people in Shonan who can't play cards? Zhou Shuling can do it too, but she used to think she didn't have the spare money to play cards, but now what Zhou Shuling thinks is that she doesn't want to win other people's money, and feels that others will be unhappy if she wins. She also doesn't want to lose money, and she will be even more unhappy if she loses money. However, Zhou Shuling never stopped others from playing cards, but she would help Shang Guandandan make up for the money she lost. It was because of this that the poor Queen Mother was finally able to save 3,000 yuan and bury it in the ground. After Zhou Shuling packed her treasure suitcase, Lu Chang'an asked with a smile, "Is this your first time traveling far away?" Yeah, Zhou Shuling nodded sheepishly. "I will take you to more places in the future." Lu Chang'an stroked Zhou Shuling's head and said in a gentle tone. Zhou Shuling nodded lower. She really wanted to hug him, or be held in his arms, but she couldn't do this. It was good now, and she was content with what she had. Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong also had a good rest. They felt that this was a big event for everyone to travel. Shang Guandandan decided to use his own electric pony carriage to show his attention, and at the same time demonstrated the Queen Mother's ability and capital to control family affairs. Still sitting in the usual way, but Zhou Shuling changed from sitting on the side to sitting astride. Lu Chang'an was holding the electric car in one hand and holding Zhou Shuling's suitcase horizontally in the other hand. He drove in extremely eye-catching and quite impressive. The dedicated elevator entrance of Bailong Center. If his electric car can seat 2 or 3 people, it will be very cool. He is still a little worse than the internet celebrity electric car boy who brought 5 women to show off in the city, even if his ability to carry a suitcase horizontally with one hand can be slightly improved. Jin Xiaomei was already waiting at the elevator entrance. Seeing this electric car that was obviously overloaded and illegal, she quickly opened the elevator door so that the electric car could drive in directly. The elevator went straight to the top of the building. Shang Guandandan hesitated for a moment and asked Jin Xiaomei, "Does it need to be locked?" Ah, Jin Xiaomei didn't understand very well. "What is a big lock?" Shang Guandandan frowned. Xiaotang's new secretary was not witty at all. He was not as considerate as Xiao Zhongqing at all, and he was still a robot. Zhongqing would definitely say, "Don't worry, I'll look after it for you. If it's lost, I'll give you a new one." The new secretary is stupid. So Shang Guandandan took out the big lock and Zhou Dongdong's small plastic lock from the storage box under the seat, and locked his electric pony car to the charging pile next to the elevator exit on the top floor. Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong had already run to see the helicopter that was on standby. "Aren't you coming with us?" Lu Chang'an asked Jin Xiaomei. Jin Xiaomei shook her head slightly embarrassed. "Mr. didn't call me." "Come on, the future is long." Lu Chang'an sympathized with Jin Xiaomei. After all, she was in a car accident and her face and skull were shattered. Moreover, her face has been modified to look so beautiful. She is not the most beautiful in the world, but she is skilled in swordsmanship. A superb representative work that can be called art. "Thank you." Jin Xiaomei bent down and bowed. Lu Chang'an saw what seemed to be a design drawing on the tablet in her hand, and couldn't help but frowned and asked, "What is this?" The third lady proposed a new concept of the immortal sheep armor a long time ago. 2 days ago she suddenly proposed to put this concept into production. This is the data compiled by the laboratory below. Jin Xiaomei handed the tablet to Lu Chang'an for review. She already knew that this gentleman had an extraordinary influence on the third lady. She heard the news that something big happened in Nanshan a few days ago. Zhongsuk rushed there, and then sent a helicopter to pick up the gentleman and deal with it. Immortal sheep armor? Lu Chang'an took the tablet and fiddled with it with his fingers, only to realize that the set of immortal sheep armor actually had 2 sets of specifications. Judging from the various labels, Zhu Huntang actually prepared 1 set for him. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but feel a sense of resistance and crisis. With Zhu Huntang's temperament, he was afraid that he would be forced to put on this suit. Lu Chang'an shuddered and erased the images that appeared in his mind. His heart could explode, but the immortal sheep armor must not be worn on his body. I, today, did not lick the cat's ass. Thank you everyone for your generous tips and monthly votes. Xiahua will check the backstage every day to see the list of people who have given tips and voted for monthly votes. It is a pity that I cannot read out the names one by one to thank them like the live broadcast. There will be another big chapter with thanks tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 922. Habit is a powerful force, even Lu Chang'an will obey. After becoming a human, Lu Chang'an has transformed less often. His recent transformations in Antarctica and Nanshan have been unexpectedly frequent. Especially this time in Nanshan grassland, it was completely unnecessary. It's not that he has any discrimination against animals like sheep, but the height of body shape after transformation and the changes in the five senses brought about by changes in body organs require readjustment, which will bring a short-term sense of confusion. Anyway, he will not be like Zhejun. Tang enjoys switching between the states of human and sheep. A typical example is the viewing angle. Lu Chang'an usually has an adjustable viewing angle, but Zhu Huntang does not. After she turned into a sheep, her eyes changed from human parallel to facing each other on both sides, but this did not seem to have any effect on her. What's the hindrance? You can see from her various playing actions after transforming into a sheep that day. She adapted very well, as if she was born a sheep. Lu Chang'an does not discriminate against sheep. In fact, he has a very fond impression of sheep. In many periods of history, shepherds drove their flocks alone, chasing lush aquatic plants on the grasslands. The sheep is the shepherd's asset and his companion. On the lonely grassland with little change in scenery, the sheep accompanies him to play, hug him to sleep, and resist the strong wind and cold weather. At this time, the significance of sheep to shepherds is no different from raising cats. Stroking the soft and fluffy animals will bring people a sense of peace of mind and satisfaction, and reduce the risk of psychological depression or abnormality. Probability. Just because you like sheep doesn't mean you want to turn into a sheep, and you're wearing some kind of fairy sheep armor. Zhu Huntang is an exception. She likes to bleat, and she also likes to turn into a sheep. She wants to make two sets, Lu Chang'an asked. The two sets of armors are both sheep-shaped, but their appearance is very different. The larger set in the display data has a relatively low-key appearance, a bit like the Nightmare Warhorse in the game. The appearance pictures also show that the suit of armor can emit flames, making it look more like a Nightmare Warhorse with facial features and limbs burning with hellfire. But who has heard of Nightmare Warsheep? What the hell is that? There is also a set that Zhu Huntang probably prepared for herself. It is colorful and colorful. It is not much different from the low skirt she usually wears. It is indeed a fairy sheep. Yes, this large set is ready to be manufactured in quantity of 2. It seems to have more functions, better materials, and uses cutting-edge technology. The other set has similar functions and materials, but it has an additional cross-dressing function, which can be used through adding clothing accessories to change the fashion style is like a skin in a game Jin Xiaomei introduced. Quite creative, Lu Chang'an didn't bother to care about her, handed the tablet back to Jin Xiaomei, and then walked to the helicopter. Under such circumstances, the benefits of business attire are fully demonstrated. Jin Xiaomei's hip-covering skirt is very safe in a place like the top floor, so Zhou Shuling has to hold the skirt tightly. Lu Chang'an walked over, helped her tighten the hem of the skirt and tied it into a knot. It was like a hip-covering skirt, hugging her buttocks and legs tightly to prevent them from blowing up in the wind. Zhou Dongdong stood here calmly, unable to be knocked down by the wind, showing the demeanor of a heavyweight. She was very excited when she saw the helicopter. She ran over and stood next to it, spreading her hands and waving them up and down, as if she would get some bonus from practicing flying here. But she quickly realized that the helicopter relied on the iron bars on its head to spin and fly, so Zhou Dongdong also spun, and as expected, hit Lu Chang'an's thigh, and then fell to the ground. Zhou Dongdong lay there and looked into Lu Chang'an's eyes for a while, then he swayed left and right and rolled up using his strength. He didn't try to get up using the carp kick technique as his brother Chang'an taught him a while ago. Zhou Dongdong did not give up practicing kung fu easily, but every time she practiced carp kicking, not only would she be beaten by her mother, but she would also be mocked as a maggot by her brother Chang'an, which inevitably seriously discouraged her. The scene of Zhu Huntang and Zhou Dongdong playing with Lu Hanchen appeared in Lu Chang'an's mind, especially Shang Guandandan, who might be standing next to him holding a hot water bottle. He felt a little anxious in his heart. Is this a common psychological problem that human men have after becoming expectant fathers? Alas, I have done such a perfect job of becoming an ordinary person, even my psychological problems are so ordinary. Growing up in such an environment, what kind of outstanding talent would Lu Qianqian be? Lu Chang'an was deeply doubtful. It seemed that his own decision was the wisest and most powerful. Lu Chang'an would not be born in the near future. Brother Chang'an, why can the helicopter fly like this but I can't? Zhou Dongdong stood on the spot and shook his arms, but he stopped spinning. You should have understood this problem when you imitated the speed of light gyroscope and then hit the wall. Later, when you thought it was a real small plane, I also thought about it in my mind. If it is overweight, it will crash. Lu Chang'an reminded Zhou Dongdong, recalled her failure experience to gain a correct understanding. Zhou Dongdong was stunned for a moment, unwilling to accept the reality, so he stopped thinking about the problem and climbed up with Lu Chang'an's thigh in his arms. Lu Chang'an bent down to grab a handful, let her sit on his arm, and then walked towards the helicopter with him in his arms. Airplane. Zhou Shuling was chatting with Jin Xiaomei, asking whether she would be forced to become airsick when riding in a helicopter because of the constant rotation of the rotor, and whether her parachute would be entangled in the rotor when parachuting on a helicopter. Such things showed that she was good at thinking. Question. Shang Guandandan sat in the cabin. The crew was placing Zhou Shuling's large suitcase. Shang Guandandan walked to the driver's seat. Seeing so many buttons, he couldn't help but want to press each one to see if it would be fun. The driver sat back, vaguely aware of the inexplicable danger. As an industry that is highly professional and requires concentration, his intuition has always been sharp, and he suddenly had the idea to change shifts. But when I thought about it carefully, I had just completed a regular inspection, and there were no problems with my physical and mental fitness. After the flight mission was arranged, the helicopter was also carefully inspected by maintenance personnel to determine that there were no hidden dangers. Then let's fly. After all, flying a private plane is much easier than flying a commercial flight. It would be difficult for a wealthy employer like Mr. to find another employer. Can you teach me to fly a small plane? Shang Guandandan asked, tilting her head. If he agreed, she could pour him a glass of effervescent water. The driving position of the small plane was a bit like her own electric pony carriage, but there are a lot of small TVs installed on top. Well, if you want to learn to fly a helicopter, you need to be at least 16 years old, the pilot said with a smile. Although he had an inexplicable sense of crisis, he always felt that the little girl behind him would rush up and operate the helicopter randomly. But he couldn't help but laugh. The little girl was so beautiful, and she looked especially cute when she tilted her head to talk. I'm many years old, Shang Guandandan said dissatisfiedly. These people always answered wrong questions. She just wanted to learn to fly a small plane. What does her age have to do with it? When she was a child, she wanted to ride Guozayama, but the palace maids never told her how old she needed to be before she could ride. They would kneel on the ground and let Shang Guandandan ride her instead of Guozayama, which was slightly dangerous and not suitable for being controlled by a young queen. Okay, haha, first of all, you need to get to know these functional components. This is the main switch, this is the fuel switch, this is the hydraulic switch, this is the strobe switch, navigation light switch, de-icing. The driver, the first time the member heard the answer, many years, he smiled and pointed. Lu Chang'an came up at this time and saw Shang Guandandan standing in the driving area looking around. He quickly said, "This is not a washing machine, microwave, rice cooker, or anything like that. Don't press those buttons one by one." The pilot's pointing hand froze in mid-air and he stopped introducing. His intuition was indeed right. This little girl gave people a dangerous feeling. It was strange. Even if she wanted to press the button to play, she couldn't really press it after all. But she still gives people a sense of crisis that can cause trouble. This time it was a trip. Apart from the accompanying crew members, there were only 4 other people: Lu Chang'an. Shang Guandandan was pulled back by Lu Chang'an and pinned down on the seat with a seat belt to prevent her from walking around randomly and being too curious and pressing her everywhere. Zhou Dongdong must also be controlled with a seat belt. After all, she is a round object. If not fixed on the seat, she may roll around in the cabin due to the tilt of the fuselage and other reasons. The first time Zhou Shuling took a plane was in a helicopter. She was a little scared, so she was next to Lu Chang'an and hugged his arm. "You asked me to buy a helicopter for Dongdong before. I asked, but I couldn't figure out how many years it would take to save enough money." After the helicopter took off, Zhou Shuling stopped because she hugged Lu Chang'an's arm tightly. Scared, but also a little excited. When you still use the concept of saving money, there is generally no need to buy such a large helicopter. Just buy a cheap one for fun, Lu Chang'an thought for a while, but in fact it was not necessary to make a simplified version of the helicopter. It's not very difficult, but without the addition of a modern manufacturing system, it may cost more for individuals to assemble the parts together than to directly buy an entry-level helicopter. The key to making a helicopter by yourself is fun. Lu Chang'an felt that he could take Zhou Dongdong to experience the fun of making a helicopter. There are many people doing this in China, but most of these people do not have convenient conditions for using helicopters. In this situation, a whole family is sitting in a luxurious private helicopter, and they are still doing it by themselves. Is there that much fun and sense of accomplishment? There should be some. What I do is different after all. Buying a helicopter will definitely cost a lot of money. Mom, when we have money, we can open a supermarket so that I don't have to go to school. Zhou Dongdong just wants to fly through his own efforts. He is interested in owning a helicopter. Qian has no obsession. On the contrary, he has never forgotten his ideal of becoming a supermarket owner. And my card shop. Shang Guandandan remembered that his card shop was going to be opened together with Zhou Dongdong's supermarket. If you open a supermarket, you don't have to go to school. You think so? Zhou Shuling feels that she is capable of opening a small supermarket now, but since she is opening a supermarket, she is pursuing profit. With Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong here, profit seems basically impossible. You don't have to go to school if you open a rice noodle shop. Of course I don't have to go to school if I open a supermarket. As long as I have a shop, I don't have to go to school. Zhou Dongdong came to this conclusion through observation. She goes to and from school every day and sees everyone who owns a shop is envious. Then you save money to open a supermarket yourself, Zhou Shuling said angrily. Her children always think about not wanting to study. I don't know who they are like. Zhou Shuling is now thinking about working hard to get into Hunan University. Zhou Dongdong dug into her pockets and found that there was no 50 cents in change, but she didn't care much. She found a snack box on the small table in front of the sofa chair, so she picked up the beef strips and entered the box. In the world. I want a vending machine. Shang Guandandan looked at Lu Chang'an and said, it would be best if he could agree. It doesn't matter if he doesn't want to. Shang Guandandan already has 3,000 yuan, and he will slowly save up. You should be able to buy one if you save up. What do you want a vending machine for? Lu Chang'an knew very well that Shang Guandandan did not want to cooperate with the vending machine operating company. She just wanted a vending machine at home for her own use. Vending machines generally cooperate with the operating company and the target location, and the operating company pays rent or shares profits. Like Shang Guandandan, it's just like a snack cabinet that requires replenishing goods and purchasing programs. It's fun, Shang Guan said calmly. Lu Chang'an took out his mobile phone. Children would enter the eating barrier. Adults would enter the mobile phone barrier. But Zhou Shuling, who had not entered the mobile phone barrier, began to think about the feasibility of this problem. Dan, someone came to discuss cooperation with our rice noodle shop before and wanted to put a vending machine in our store. However, the mall stipulated that such external cooperation must be managed by the mall, so the negotiation was not successful. Otherwise, let's go and ask if we can put one in our community, Zhou Shuling asked. You can't put it at home. What's the difference between it and the vending machines outside? Shang Guandandan just wants to put his own champagne water and effervescent tablets in it. Every time he wants to take it, he scans the code to buy it and enjoys it. The fun of spending money lavishly, and finally the money goes into your own account. In this cycle, the business grows bigger and bigger. Shang Guandandan finally nodded. He first brought the vending machine to the community and then carried it home. Although he didn't have much strength, he could still do it with hard work. After all, even Zhou Dongdong knew how to persist and carry it home. The meaning of effort. Lu Chang'an was in the mobile phone barrier and turned a deaf ear to what Shang Guandandan and Zhou Shuling were going to do. It was meaningless to express opinions and dissuade them now. Anyway, they would always do all kinds of messy things, and finally let him clean up the situation. After eating and chatting all the way, we soon arrived at Nanshan Ranch and landed at the stadium of the Baojun Group Baoking Branch Staff Holiday Center. Except for Zhuhantang's fleet flagship, which was still on standby, other helicopters were missing in Zhuhantang. After the incident was resolved, they all flew away. Lu Chang'an took a look before getting off the plane. He did not see the sheep with a plastic bag on his butt, but Zhu Huntang, who was beautifully dressed and exuding the aura of a fairy. He finally felt a lot more comfortable. Zhou Dongdong stepped on the ladder and rushed down first, and ran to Zhu Huntang's side with a "Ouch, Sister Fairy, we came to play in your helicopter, thank you for the plane. We haven't played together for a long time." Zhu Huntang bent down and wanted to hug Zhou Dongdong, but in the end he held her hand instead. Zhu Huntang felt sour in his heart. He had suffered so much in Nanshan Ranch, even Zhou Dongdong was like this. I haven't seen the little cutie for a long time, and the bad old man is torturing me. Bai Hui also ran over and tried to hug Zhou Dongdong, but also gave up and held her other hand. Zhou Dongdong breathed a big sigh of relief. Fortunately, the dancing sister didn't pick her up, otherwise she would have said something like, "Dongdong, you've lost weight again," which shocked and frightened Zhou Dongdong. Shang Guandandan stood at the door of the cabin and looked around, nodded majestically, and then walked towards Zhu Huntang and Bai Hui. Dan, I haven't played cards with you for a long time. We must play cards all night tonight." Bai Hui let go of Zhou Dongdong and took Shang Guandandan's hands, showing the enthusiasm of meeting old friends. Appearance. Take off the clothes. Zhu Huntang immediately suggested that as long as they took off their clothes, Zhu Huntang would turn into sheep and run out and take away their clothes. Then things would turn out like in the fairy tale, where the fairies lost their clothes. At the same time, she lost her virginity and was carried back to play by Lu, a cowherd and woodcutter who appeared at the scene. This is not good for Zhu Huntang, but it is fun. If socks count, then come. Bai Hui responded boldly. She brought a lot of socks, but unfortunately she didn't change a few pairs last time. Lu Chang'an didn't even see the particularly sexy garters. Dan, long time no see. Yan Qing Cheng, who was standing slightly behind, greeted Shang Guandandan with a smile. In fact, Yan Qingchen knew Shang Guandandan much earlier than Bai Hui. Not long after school started, a class at the Normal University had a social gathering with Yan Qingchen and Lu Chang'an's class. Lu Chang'an brought Shang Guandandan with him. Sunangzia was also there at the time. The three of them ate a lot of scraps, and finally took away all the scraps left by Yan Qingchen, mainly because Yan Qingchen saw that they liked them, so she gave them to Lu Chang'an. Shang Guandandan nodded. This girl was ordinary and had pure aura. She had not been contaminated with Lu Chang'an's aura. This was normal because she was not a wet nurse. Lu Chang'an and Zhou Shuling were behind them. After Zhou Shuling finished greeting the girls and got to know Yan Qingchen, Lu Chang'an slowly walked to them, raised his hand to drive them away, and drove them back to the backyard of the resort building. Zhu Huntang was at the back. After waiting, he walked side by side with Lu Chang'an. He grabbed Lu Chang'an's palm and put it on top of his head. He raised his hand to hold the back of his hand and asked strangely, "Usually you take the initiative to grab my head, I just want to fight to the death, but now I like to let you grab my head, what do you think is going on?" "That's not called a death struggle, it's called a desperate struggle, a hard struggle," and so on. Lu Chang'an was not interested in answering her question, but her wording errors must be corrected. Zhu Huntang didn't know many idioms and sayings. Sometimes they also like to change idioms thinking they have connotations, making communication more difficult. "What do you think is going on?" Zhu Huntang asked next. As for Lu Chang'an finding faults, it was just normal. He would either shave her hair off or find faults in every hair of hers. This is probably the same as when small animals expose their bellies to be scratched, expressing trust and surrender. Lu Chang'an thought of a word at the same time, the cutest height difference. Generally speaking, the cutest height difference is between lovers, but it also feels like this between Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang. Because of the height difference between her and Lu Chang'an, his hands are placed just right, not too high and not too low. Smoothly. Maybe the term cutest height difference is not used to describe girls whose heads are easily grabbed by boys, but that's okay. Absurd. Sooner or later, I am the one who will ride on your head and dominate you. You should show your trust and surrender to me. Zhu Huntang suddenly put down his hands and grabbed Lu Chang'an's belly. Surprise attack. Tickle you. Belly. When Lu Chang'an heard her say the word ridiculous, he basically guessed her next move, so he was already prepared. He pressed her head so that her surprise attack could not touch Lu Chang'an's belly. The people in front turned around and saw a familiar scene again. Zhu Huntang was being held down by Lu Chang'an, dancing around, kicking and grabbing him. Bai Hui also smiled and recalled that she seemed to have been scratched by Lu Chang'an, but this was not the case. Only when she was with Lu Chang'an, Zhu Huntang was particularly childish and like a mischievous child. Well, she was also quite mischievous. Always keen on making Bai Hui become Lu Chang'an's personal plaything. Fortunately, Bai Hui was quite resourceful and prevented Zhu Huntang from succeeding, and the girl's purity has been preserved so far. Yan Qingchen had seen the scene the most, but through the video call at noon, Yan Qingchen had a lot of doubts in her heart, especially Zhu Huntang's hints and temptations, which made Yan Qingchen even more vigilant. After the video call at noon, Zhu Huntang was about to take a nap. After Yan Qingchen left her bedroom, she recalled Zhu Huntang's words holding the Peking opera mask. It was both a deliberate hint and an obvious test. Zhu Huntang discovered that Yan Qingchen was in. She was suspicious of something, and Yan Qingchen was obviously not as natural as a young lady from such a wealthy family in this regard. When she was surprised and doubtful, Zhu Huntang confirmed something. If Zhu Huntang hadn't confirmed Lu Chang'an's coming to Nanjing during the video call, Yan Qingchen would really have suspected that Lu Chang'an was invited by her to deal with her. It's also possible that she came to warn her not to reveal such a shocking secret, but she shouldn't kill anyone to silence her. After all, this is so absurd that no one would believe it. No one would believe her even if she told her, so why kill her? Yan Qingchen was thinking wildly, and for a while she began to suspect that maybe it was all because of her own nerves, and there was no such thing as Lu Jianxi equals Lu Chang'an. Let's go, what are you doing standing here? Bai Hui greeted Yan Qingchen with a smile. Ah, I was thinking that I ate a little less tonight. I don't know when to have supper tonight, Yan Qingchen said casually. I ate quite a lot at night, but thinking about the skills of the kitchen chef, my mouth is watering again. Bai Hui knew it well. Yan Qingchen was trying to set up a foodie persona, but who didn't know you were in school? You won't eat anything at all at night? A few days ago, Bai Hui and Tong 11 saw Yan Qingchen eating some porridge and steamed buns for dinner in the cafeteria, which showed that Yan Qingchen was not the kind of person who was particularly good at eating. But she didn't pretend to be a good eater in front of Lu Chang'an at that time. Of course, there is no need to hide in the bathroom and induce vomiting just to pretend to eat well and stay in shape. As Bai Hui recalled the details of that day, a scene flashed by, and she suddenly had an idea. Lu Chang'an served Yan Qingchen with food that day. It must be because Lu Chang'an disliked Yan Qingchen for not eating enough and gave Yan Qingchen some food, which made Yan Qingchen realize that Lu Chang'an liked girls with good appetites, so Yan Qingchen woke up and started to become a foodie when Lu Chang'an came today. The character is set. Thinking about it carefully, Yan Qingchen seemed to have eaten a lot of mutton when Lu Chang'an arrived on the day Zhu Huntang disappeared. He should have thought at that time that he was careless. I must eat more than Yan Qingchen. Bai Hui angrily made up her mind to exercise more and not even drink water, making herself very hungry. Zhongqing was not here, and neither was Jin Xiaomei, but Bai Hui was already familiar with the staff at the resort. She took Zhou Shuling and Shang Guandandan to choose a room to stay in, and asked the staff to bring 2 large pots to Shang Guandandan. Good hot water, and told them to remember to deliver hot water tomorrow morning. After all, Shang Guandandan would be tired if he had to rely on the small hot water bottle in the room to fill the big thermos pot. Yan Qingchen calmly watched Bai Hui busy coming in and out. Bai Hui could directly command the staff. In addition to being Zhu Huntang's friend, another reason is that Bai Hui is Zhongqing's cousin. Many people have spread rumors, Bai Hui will be trained to be an assistant like Zhongqing, so naturally he cannot be offended. But Yan Qingchen knew that was not the case. She had heard that Zhu Huntang seemed to want Bai Hui to be his assistant, but Bai Hui refused. Bai Hui preferred to be Zhu Huntang's friend. However, Zhongqing vaguely revealed that Yan Qingchen can work in Baojun Group after graduation, and her development prospects will definitely be good. In other words, Bai Hui's enthusiasm today was not based on any realistic calculations. She was simply trying to please the people around Lu Chang'an. Bai Hui likes Lu Chang'an, loves the house as much as the bird, and shows a careful and courteous attitude to everyone around Lu Chang'an. Yan Qingchen feels tired just looking at it, but fortunately she is not trapped. I just don't know if Bai Hui discovers Lu Chang'an's secret, will she go crazy? The young man whom he thought was his desk mate was actually the old lover of Yan Qingchen's mother. Yan Qingchen shook his head, and it was better not to think about such ridiculous things that were completely undeterminable, lest he think about it and believe it to be true for no reason, which would eventually affect his thoughts and behaviors. What are you doing? Ah, Yan Qingchen turned around and realized that it was Lu Chang'an patting her shoulder, and couldn't help blurting out, "Where is my mother?" "Why are you asking me?" Lu Chang'an smiled slightly. "There are not many rewards and monthly tickets these days. I spin 36,000 times upside down and burrow into the ground to catch fire and spontaneously ignite. I am asking for monthly tickets. I'm really immortal." Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 923. Lu Chang'an's face was so close, and his smile always made people feel like they could see through others, which made people feel a little flustered. Yan Qingcheng also discovered that Lu Chang'an's face was indeed very similar to Professor Lu Jianxi's. It was probably the same person of different age groups. If you let Lu Chang'an and Lu Jianxi take a photo each and put them together, if you look closely, you will think that they are the youth and old age of the same person. This is the non-environmental father-son blood phenomenon. This is probably how her mother sees it. What Yan Qingcheng can't imagine is that if her guess is true, her mother's date will accompany her shopping during the day, stay overnight at a girl's house at night, and be with her daughter from Monday to Friday. A classmate goes to Nanshan to accompany his daughter on Saturdays and Sundays. No. Nothing, I thought you were shopping with them today. My mother said she really wanted to meet you, Yan Qingcheng quickly explained, but she was muttering in her heart that Professor Lu Jianxi and Lu Chang'an would never appear at the same time. It's not very appropriate. After meeting me, Lu Chang'an, most parents with sons want me to be her son's brother and friend to help him grow up. Occasionally, some want his son to develop the habit of cutting sleeves with me. This is relatively rare. But it's not nothing. Lu Chang'an shook his head and expressed a little burden. Someone who has a daughter wants to bring me and her daughter together. Even though she knows that I have a girlfriend, she still comes up with plans to help her daughter poach her. She is even more supportive of the two girls serving one husband. These things happen often, but after the establishment of a new country, under the leadership of great men, the patriarchy was abolished, and the feudal customs of male power represented by husband's power over women became much less common and gave him daughters. I have lived a relatively relaxed life for decades. In the past, the kind-hearted and benevolent owner of the 9 provinces Fengaljian sect would often have his tenants or surrounding farmers kneel in front of him and beg him to take away his daughter, as long as he gave her a mouthful of food. If he accepted it in this situation, of course he would still give her some money. Life would not be easy at that time. If you leave your daughter to him, at least she will not starve to death and you will have food and drink. If the daughter was sensible and considerate, she would bring food and drink back from time to time, but he would turn a blind eye. Otherwise, where did the Zhu Fenglai sword sect come from with so many female disciples? Most of them are not forced to be delivered to your door. There is no way. If people are capable and kind-hearted, they will involuntarily assume more social responsibilities. The special situation of Su Mei being sent to her door is a little less common, but it is not the only one. The ugly ones are naturally killed, while the good-looking ones are kept in a room to play together and develop into their own people. You are so shameless. Yan Qingcheng was stunned, surprised by Lu Chang'an's shamelessness. Although he felt that what he said was the truth, he would not say it so frankly. What's more, he seems to mean that if his mother sees him, even if she knows that he has a girlfriend, he still wants her to be with Lu Chang'an. Yan Qingcheng did not have this idea. Any girl with normal outlook on life and normal mind would not be able to accept it. She's not some non-black hoe god. But speaking of which, your skin is much better than when you first started school. Girls still need to take good care of themselves. It is difficult to look glamorous just by relying on your natural beauty without dressing up or taking care of it, Lu Chang'an observed. Made some suggestions. You should know that even An Nuan dressed appropriately and put on makeup in high school, and Lu Yuang would also give her some nutritious food and health products suitable for women. Yan Hui should have been limited by family conditions in the past. Without this awareness of improving the quality of life and sense of sophistication, her foundation should make her a little more beautiful than she is now. After all, she is Yan Hui's daughter. Yan Hui and Professor Lu should have been on par when they were young girls, but it makes no sense that their daughters are quite different. Really, Yan Qingcheng lowered her head in embarrassment and quickly looked at her skin. It was indeed significantly different from when she first entered college, but she was not the type of Zhu Huntang who could be easily broken. After all, Yan Qingcheng, it's just that the food has improved slightly and the stress in life has reduced. It's just that the good mood has affected the body. Eat more at night, and you will look good if you are fat and white. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he walked to the other end of the corridor. Yan Qingcheng stood there. Did he mean that she was also naturally beautiful? As long as he takes good care of himself, his skin can be as good as the girls around him, soft, white, elastic, smooth and tender. Among the girls that Yan Qingcheng is familiar with, she likes Zhu Huntang's skin the most. It is really incredible, it can be called a fairy's skin. Yan Qingcheng doesn't expect to be able to compare with Zhu Huntang, but it should be similar to Bai Fen's. Bar. Commenting objectively, Yan Qingcheng felt that Bai Fen's skin was a bit artificial. She had seen Bai Fen's skincare products, and they were really dazzling. After taking a shower, she applied all kinds of lotions, creams, and water on her body. So many layers. In short, let's eat more tonight, hoping that I can be fat and healthy. Yan Qingcheng doesn't care about Lu Chang'an's evaluation, but is a little unconvinced and competitive, and wants to prove that she has a good foundation. Will not lose to some inexplicable people who secretly want to compete with her. Lu Chang'an came to the other end of the corridor and saw Bai Hui admiring the paintings on the wall. It was a Van Gogh oil painting that was most likely produced in Daifen village, Washipu, or Pushan. This is just a holiday center for employees of a branch of Baojun Group. This time Prince Bamboo came to visit, which improved some conditions, but it was impossible to get some auction-level authentic products to improve the taste. Zhu Huntang herself does not have this kind of taste. She has no interest in this kind of modern art. What about Van Gogh and Picasso? How can their works be as beautiful as Miss Zhu San's selfie? Ridiculous. Lu Chang'an is not very interested in these works of art. He has collected a lot of them before, mainly because he knew the author and kept them as a memory, or because others entrusted him to keep them. So he took many of them into the tomb and had them stolen, and some of them were donated to major museums. This is not a foolproof method of preservation, but it is the most appropriate one. Presumably most of the original authors who entrusted it to him do not have it. What opinions? He didn't know Van Gogh or Picasso, nor did he appreciate their talents. Generally speaking, those who could be appreciated by him were not too depressed. It's beautiful. Lu Chang'an and Bai Hui stood side by side under the oil painting, looking up. The colors are gorgeous and the flowers are beautiful, Bai Hui reluctantly commented. From the corner of his eye, he saw that Yan Qingcheng had gone back to the room, and it seemed that he had no intention of whispering to Lu Chang'an while watching Bai Hui. When I talk to Yan Qingcheng, my voice isn't very loud. No matter how hard you stretch your ears, you can't hear me, right? Lu Chang'an looked at Bai Fen's soft ears and expressed doubts with a smile. You still know how? Lip reading. Bai Hui quickly touched her ears and found that they had not grown longer. Her hairstyle today was to cover her ears. It would not look good if her ears were really long and exposed. I don't. I just think that Yan Qingcheng and An Nuan are the same kind of people. They should be good friends. The three of us can go shopping together in the future. Of course Bai Hui will not admit it. The girl's superficial skills must be if you insist on exercising, you can only do it in your heart. If you really show it and fall in Lu Chang'an's eyes, he might think that she is causing trouble, is not united, and wants to make his circle of female friends a mess. Are you sure? Lu Chang'an looked Bai Hui up and down. What? Bai Hui didn't quite understand Lu Chang'an's question and look. It was a very common and casual thing for girls to go shopping together, just like saying hello, have you eaten? When you, An Nuan, and Yan Qingcheng walk together, the three of you form a concave shape. Don't you know? It doesn't matter if one is tall and one is short. If two are tall and one is short, you will have no sense of existence. You are just like a follower. Yes, this is unacceptable to you. Lu Chang'an reminded her that even if she talks casually, she must take the actual situation into consideration. Hearing what Lu Chang'an said, Bai Hui vaguely understood why he was only really good friends with Zhu Huntang, but couldn't get along with streetlight type women like An Nuan, Qin Yanan, and Yan Qingcheng. In fact, Yan Qingcheng is okay, not too exaggerated. She is just over 1.7 meters tall. Anan and Qin Yanan really don't want to be with them. I'm actually about 1.8 meters tall. Bai Hui tried her best to stand on tiptoe. You can jump 1.8 meters. I hate it, Bai Hui explained seriously. Look at me, the heels are 8 centimeters, the insoles are 3 centimeters, plus my big bow head dress, am I over 1.8 meters tall? Lu Chang'an immediately understood why many boys who are 1.75 meters or even 1.78 meters now have height anxiety. The business of manufacturers of height increasing shoes and height increasing insoles is getting better and better. As expected, creating anxiety can cause anxiety. Interests, no wonder there are so many forces behind it, adding fuel to the fire and creating all kinds of anxieties. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 924. Lu Chang'an and Bai Hui, who was almost 1.8 meters tall, walked downstairs. Bai Fen is the type with a sweet appearance, but her figure is rare among girls, and she is very plump and can easily arouse people's desire. The difference in style between face and figure creates a charming amorous feeling, which is what is called pure and lustful. This kind of girl is often easy to cause misunderstandings. Any movement she makes will make people feel seductive. And because of her pure face, men who face her will often have misunderstandings. Such a pure girl will, by putting on such a sexy pose in front of me, was she trying to seduce me? Qin Yanan's figure is more exaggerated than that of Bai Fen, and she is also the type who stretches, breathes lightly, or stands up and sits down in a charming way. It's just that men who face her need to be more self-aware. After all, her face is always plain. What expressions and sweet smiles are invisible to most people and will not convey the wrong message. By the way, I came to kick your sheep that night. It often appears here. I've become more familiar with it. Bai Hui also posted a comment on the space where she took photos of her and the sheep, and An Nuan also liked it. If Lu Chang'an was there when An Nuan liked it, An Nuan would most likely show him Bai Hui's space on purpose, and then test whether Lu Chang'an's focus would shift from the sheep to Bai Hui's chest and legs. What's so fun about that sheep? Its hair is shaved like rotten turf, and it has a plastic bag on its butt. It seems that Zhu Huntang hasn't shown off yet that she can transform into a sheep, and she doesn't care about her sheep. The image is so bad. It's so cute. It likes to act coquettishly. It lets me hold it and play with it. It also sleeps on my chest and bleats with its eyes closed. It looks very comfortable. Bai Hui quickly defended his sheep friend. Lu Chang'an must have heard it because he usually listens to Zhu Juntang's bleating was a little annoying, which affected the other sheep. Birds of a feather flock together. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Zhu Huntang could become good friends with Bai Anis even if he turned into a sheep. What if this wasn't like birds of a feather flocking together? If white fennel turned into sheep, it would be the kind that is fat and tender, suitable for hot pot. When they came downstairs, Zhu Huntang was playing with Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong. Lu Chang'an saw that they were having fun and couldn't help but frowned. This Zhu Huntang shouted for him to play with her, but he kept following Shang Guandan. Dan but ran behind. Bai Hui also called Shang Guandandan's name and ran over. Lu Chang'an looked left and right. Zhou Shuling didn't join in the fun. She went to the kitchen just after she came downstairs. In addition to the original chef of the staff vacation building, Zhu Huntang also brought her own. When the chef comes, Zhou Shuling wants to learn some skills. Lu Chang'an has become a loner. Currently, Yan Qingcheng is the only one who has not got involved in this chaotic group of people, but Lu Chang'an cannot go upstairs to play with Yan Qingcheng. First of all, going out to find Yan Qingcheng would send the wrong signal. Because of Yan Hui, Lu Chang'an didn't want to tease Yan Qingcheng. Secondly, despite the fact that Lu Chang'an is alone now, there are always people paying attention to his every move. If he really entered Yan Qingqian's room, Zhu Huntang might lead Reniao outside the door to eavesdrop in the next moment. Among them, Bai Hui was an activist in the corner, and his enthusiasm was no less than Zhou Dongdong's. Elements. So Lu Chang'an came to the football field. The crew was doing routine maintenance after the flight. He went over to chat with the crew. The first time I paid attention to domestic helicopters was in 1944 when I heard that a man named Zhu Jiaran was designing helicopters. However, he left the country soon, and the helicopters he came across when he came back were imitations of the Mi-4 model based on Soviet drawings. The helicopters of that era were incomparable to modern products. Except for the fact that the principle of flight has not changed, other aspects including materials, power, and systems have made great progress. The S-92 is a very good helicopter to begin with, not to mention that this is an improved model. The information-based flight control display system is full of modern technology. The clear and bright display screens must be her favorite in Shang Guandandan's eyes. TV said. Seeing these displays, Lu Chang'an had an idea. He should buy a tablet to play with when he got home, and fill it with games. Shang Guandandan would not compete with him for the computer and TV. It can even attract Zhou Dongdong, and it becomes Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong competing to play with the tablet computer, and Lu Chang'an gets the benefit. After getting this clever idea, Lu Chang'an felt happy and stretched out his hand to test the weight of the helicopter. It was more than 7 tons, much heavier than Zhou Dongdong. Lu Chang'an walked back to the front yard and saw Shang Guandandan standing on the high platform, shouting loudly and throwing something down to the audience from time to time. In the audience, Bai Hui, Zhu Huntang, Zhou Dongdong, and Zhou Shuling, who probably left the kitchen because she thought she couldn't learn, were holding plastic bags, cloth bags, baskets, and other things in their hands, and were catching what Guandandan dropped. Gift. Seeing this scene, Lu Chang'an couldn't help but frowned again. His worries were indeed true. Shang Guandandan had a strong ability to pollute his intelligence. Zhu Huntang and Zhou Dongdong also liked to do stupid things to show others. Shang Guandandan led everyone to act like a group of stupid little animals rejoicing without knowing what they were talking about. Bai Hui was the most supportive. After receiving a pack of tissues, he yelled as if he had won 5 million. Zhou Shuling relied on her height to grab a piece of shakima from Zhou Dongdong's head, and showed off to Zhou Dongdong there. Zhu Huntang waved her hand, and the staff handed her jewelry box to Shang Guandandan on the high platform. This event was sponsored by Miss Zhu San, and it immediately rose to countless levels. Zhou Dongdong held an empty pocket, but she didn't pick up anything. These sisters and mother usually pretended to like Dongdong the most, but at this time they didn't give in at all. Lu Chang'an couldn't stand it anymore, so he ran over and asked Zhou Dongdong to sit on his shoulders, immediately taking advantage of his height. "Why are you here?" Bai Hui was excited. "It's only fair that you should stand a little behind." "You're too tall." Zhou Shuling was not happy. She had just picked up a piece of shakima and a box of ballpoint pens. Bai Hui picked up much more than her. Although Zhu Huntang took fewer shots, but Zhu Huntang actually got the heavyweight gift. Shang Guandandan said, "A big box, and I don't know what's inside yet." "You just snatched shakima over Zhou Dongdong's head. Why didn't you say it was unfair?" Lu Chang'an despised this little mother who snatched things from her own child. Zhou Shuling was speechless and quietly changed her position and stood next to Bai Hui. She was a little taller than Bai Hui. Bai Hui, who was 1.8 meters tall, took off her high heels to make it easier for her to spin, jump and move around. Yan Qingcheng came down from upstairs and watched everyone's commotion with a smile. "Chenzi, come and play with everyone." Shang Guandandan waved to Yan Qingcheng. So the staff next to him handed Yan Qingcheng a large bowl for easy loading. Yan Qingcheng was a little embarrassed. Why was she given a big bowl? Only a beggar would hold up a bowl. But everyone was watching expectantly, and Yan Qingcheng had no choice but to come over slightly and stand a little behind Lu Chang'an. Bai Hui glanced back. Why was Yan Qingcheng standing behind Lu Chang'an? Is it convenient to trigger the plot where Lu Chang'an retreats and hits her chest? Huh, with such a big heart, Lu Chang'an must have thought he had hit an iron plate when he bumped into it. Shhh, Dandan spoke. Bai Hui quickly focused his attention. With Zhu Huntang's sponsorship, the prizes will be even richer. We will also give away a mobile phone for free today. Shangguan Dandan first showed Zhu Huntang's jewelry box and took out a bejeweled mobile phone inlaid with many gems. Shangguan Dandan held both sides of the phone with one hand and held the bottom of the phone with the other hand, walking up and down the high platform, showing off in a very professional manner. Lu Chang'an frowned, and he suddenly remembered the kind of small stage promotion of mobile phone operators, giving away various gifts for free, including mobile phones and tablets. Everyone has seen that this is a diamond mobile phone sponsored by Miss San. It is of extremely high value and is very collectible. The staff over there and the chefs in the kitchen can also participate, and there are also people who fly small planes. Drivers. Shangguan Dandan saw more people watching, and while throwing ordinary gifts down, he called for more people to participate. Lu Chang'an jumped up, and Zhou Dongdong stretched out the small basket in his hand to catch it. Finally, he got the shakima. Zhou Dongdong immediately opened it, fed Lu Chang'an a mouthful, and then started eating by himself. With more people participating, it became more and more lively. Lu Chang'an, carrying Zhou Dongdong, withdrew from the central position, giving others more opportunities to participate. Shangguan Dandan's activity of giving away mobile phones lasted for half an hour, and the one who finally got the mobile phone was Bai Hui, for a cost of 10,000 yuan. Lu Chang'an looked at Zhou Shuling, who was sulking for not buying a mobile phone, and shook his head. Even Yan Qingcheng beside him looked a little pity. Shangguan Dandan and Zhu Huntang looked at each other like two little foxes stealing chickens, and they didn't pay attention. By the time Lu Chang'an saw through them, Zhu Huntang was Shangguan Dandan's entrustment. Lu Chang'an could see clearly from the sidelines that Shangguan Dandan first used free mobile phones as a gimmick, plus Zhu Huntang's jewelry box, to attract everyone to participate. Then she exaggerated how valuable the product was, getting everyone excited. Interact with the audience and indicate that the diamond phone is a limited edition and is first come, first served. Gradually improve the conditions for obtaining diamond mobile phones, while distributing other products, which are the messy little things that Bai Hui and Zhou Shuling originally got. It was proposed that the gift of the diamond phone is a 2-year right to use it, not ownership. Everyone needs to prove their financial strength and not resell the diamond phone. When this step was reached, Zhu Huntang just said that if he got it, he would never resell it. She is Zhu Huntang, and everyone believes in her financial strength, so others also think that although they are not as strong as Zhu Huntang, they do not need to resell diamond mobile phones for profit. Immediately afterwards, Shangguan Dandan gave another round of gifts. After talking about the diamond phone, he would have the treatment of Miss Zuzan's VIP guest, and could visit Miss Zuzan's top-floor super mansion, glass garden, aquarium, and transparent sky, swimming pool, etc. In the end, Bai Hui, who was very enthusiastic, got the purchase qualification and spent 10,000 yuan to buy a mobile phone. At the same time, he got the status of Zhu Huntang's VIP guest and could visit Zhu Huntang's house, garden, aquarium, swimming pool, etc. Lu Chang'an secretly made up his mind to try his best to prevent Shangguan Dandan from participating in those messy gift activities. If this continues, Shangguan Dandan will sooner or later embark on the path of telecommunications fraud. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 925. People often say that killers and prostitutes are the oldest professions. This is obviously not true. Hunters are. After humans learned to plant, various professions flourished, the status of hunters gradually declined, and the jobs of killers and prostitutes changed from occasional activities to professional activities. Everyone has a meal and is wondering where to find something to eat every day. Can killers and prostitutes become careers? While killers and prostitutes became professions, con men became an equally ancient profession. Lying is human nature, a necessary behavior to stabilize social relations and form the basis of rule. The so-called those who steal the hook will be punished, and those who steal the country will be punished by the princes, which fully illustrates that the upper limit of the profession of liar is extremely high, and there are many pursuers. The idiom self-deception further illustrates that even if humans do not deceive others, they will also deceive themselves. Although the original meaning of this idiom is, I bully myself to bully others. When I want to bully others, I'll stab myself with a knife and ask you if you're afraid. He must have a long posture again. Strictly speaking, what Shang Guanduntun did just now cannot be regarded as fraud. Her diamond phone may be a copycat phone. The so-called diamond is not valuable even if it has a certificate. However, the identity of the VIP guest she attached to her, apart from Bai Hui, Yan Qingcheng, to people other than Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong, is really valuable. For example, there are senior executives from the Beijing branch present. If they can become Zhou Huntang's VIP guests and be invited to visit the third lady's high-rise mansion, their salary and status in the company will definitely be improved in the future, let alone 10,000 yuan. 20,000 to 30,000 is enough for one person to pay, and the higher the status, the higher the price. But it was Bai Fen who bought the mobile phone. As a little white pig who is often slept with by Miss Susan, why does she need VIP guest treatment? Bai Hui bought it just to make Shang Guandandan happy, right? Yan Qingcheng held a bowl and said behind Lu Chang'an. She had already woken up from Shang Guandandan's routine and words, and was still looking at it with some suspicion. He glanced at Zhu Huntang and thought that ordinary wealthy ladies might not bother to do this kind of thing, but that was Zhu Huntang. As for why Bai Hui spent so much money to make Shang Guandandan happy, it can't be explained by Bai Fei having a lot of money. That's not how he spent a lot of money. Yan Qingcheng didn't understand very well. Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang seemed to obey Shang Guandandan's orders, just like her compliments, following Shang Guandandan around, forming an obvious circle centered on Shang Guandandan. Small group. Although Zhou Shuling was not like this, she seemed to be quite good to Shang Guandandan. It turned out that she even helped Shang Guandandan lift her skirt because she was worried that Shang Guandandan would fall on her skirt while running around. She didn't even care that her daughter Zhou Dongdong had fallen several times. Yan Qingcheng looked at Zhou Dongdong's body shape and could think of one thing. It was normal for Zhou Dongdong to roll in all directions, so Zhou Shuling was used to it. That's not entirely true. She might have had such thoughts at first, but later it became clear that she was tricked. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Ah, Yan Qingcheng remembered that she was a little ready to make a move just now, and almost forgot that although her current income was good, such expenses were still too extravagant. The more people give, including time, physical strength and energy and mental effort spent in thinking, the more determined they are to get something. If the desire is not satisfied for 30 minutes, the thinking in it will make him think that he has thought deeply. Lu Chang'an explained. Even if Shang Guandandan suddenly raised the threshold in the end, and the mobile phone was changed from a free gift to a purchase of 10,000 yuan, people no longer care about the initial free, they just want to get this thing, so they make impulsive decisions to protect themselves' satisfaction and proving yourself right. Yan Qingcheng suddenly realized, prove yourself right, so this is why in many phone scams, even if the person involved is dissuaded by the bank or the police, he will be emotional and stubborn. Only after he calms down completely will he be puzzled. Why couldn't I listen at all at that time? This fully illustrates the need to download the National Anti-Fraud Center app. It may not be able to prevent all scams, but it can always alert many people. Lu Chang'an nodded. Is there this app? It's now 2018, maybe it will be launched later. Thinking that she was ready to make a move on that diamond phone today, Yan Qingcheng made up her mind that when the National Anti-Fraud Center app comes out in the future, she must take the initiative to install it and at the same time mobilize her classmates to install it. Many fraud schemes seem to not stand up to scrutiny at all, but college students, who represent the intellectual crowd, are deceived in large numbers. At this time, the combination of the trickster, the trapper, and the victim are gathering together. Shang Guandandan looked at Bai Hui with great satisfaction. Starting from today, Bai Hui's ranking surpassed Xiao Zhongqing and Xiao Fang, temporarily ranking first, and she was only one step away from officially becoming Shang Guandandan's daughter-in-law. Dan, if Hui encounters difficulties in taking down Lu Chang'an in the future, I still need you to give me a push at the critical moment. Taking advantage of Shang Guandandan's happiness, Zhu Huntang hurriedly added that she has one characteristic, that is, she is righteous and Boyuntian. After stabbing a friend twice, you can also help your friend stab someone else, for example, stabbing Lu Chang'an twice. What nonsense are you talking about? Bai Hui said angrily. Her cheeks were red, but she didn't tell Dan not to listen to Zhu Huntang. Anyway, this was an obvious joke. Shang Guandandan could make his own judgment, so there was no need for Bai Hui to talk too much. These are all trivial matters. Hui, you should prepare yourself mentally first. When Lu Chang'an is full of affection and desire for you, but he refuses to go to Wushan with you due to reputation, I will naturally have a way to make the raw rice mature. Fu Shang Guandandan is very calm. Many queen mothers in the past dynasties have found ways to get His Majesty the Emperor to marry the woman the queen mother likes. Naturally, Shang Guandandan also has such advanced palace fighting skills. Bai Hui didn't know how to respond to such shameful words, so she could only hold her diamond mobile phone and other prizes while jumping up and down, expressing that she was only happy because of the things in her arms. Godmother, please be sure to let me, the princess of the colorful glaze pure white fairyland and the void-severing dragon flame immortal, participate in the plan. Zhu Huntang quickly said that he is so sinister and vicious, and his mind is unfathomable. People with bad intentions cannot miss such a plan. Historical events. You are there for everything. Lu Chang'an saw the three of them getting together and having a stupid brainstorm. He casually heard that Zhu Huntang was going to participate, so he walked over and grabbed Zhu Huntang's head. You can't just grab a girl's brain or her brain. Since you've captured my brain, you should also capture Bai Hui's brain. Zhu Huntang pointed at Bai Hui and said without any panic. Bai Hui stopped jumping around and quickly hugged the things in her arms tightly to cover her. Maybe the right thing to do at this time is to hold her head high? But Bai Hui is a reserved girl and cannot do this in a crowded place. I used up all my energy when I spoke just now, and now I'm tired. Shang Guandandan turned around and walked away calmly. Since Bai Hui blocked her chest, this little emperor who was disobedient to ethics might come to arrest her. Shang Guandandan was a little scared. Wait for me, Dandan. Bai Hui felt slightly guilty and quickly followed behind Shang Guandandan. Your two accomplices have abandoned you. Lu Chang'an looked on with cold eyes. This kind of small group with no ideals and harming others without benefiting itself is indeed so easy to fall apart. Humph! Zhu Huntang snorted disapprovingly. Sooner or later I will get back on my feet. As the supreme leader of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect, how come I don't even have this leadership ability? Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang, who was still arrogant even though his head was being grabbed by him. When did you become the supreme leader of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect? Didn't I tell you yesterday? I had a dream. I dreamed that you appointed me to a position greater than that of the sect leader. I was the supreme leader of the 9 provinces Fenglay sword section. I was able to ride on the sect leader's neck and dominate. Fortunately, of course it is the supreme leader Zhu Huntang did not raise his hands to help him take out from under his hands, but turned around to face Lu Chang'an with his hands on his hips. When did you sit on my neck and dominate me? I saw you trying to die under my palm. Lu Chang'an wanted to grab her head, lift her up and throw her out of the atmosphere, but he really didn't want to do this. A rare species that could only be seen in 10,000 years was extinct. He had no choice but to say coldly, "Don't forget, you haven't joined the party or become a saint, and you still have the lowest status in the 9 provinces Fenglay sword section." Li Hongfang had just started. She was just an ordinary disciple and had no position, but she was a personal follower of the sect master, so her status was certainly not low. Zhu Huntang was slightly shocked, and thought depressedly that in his dream he had clearly made her the supreme head, but when he woke up he refused to admit it. He was really a bad old man who didn't keep his words. "I have something to do, so I have to leave first." Zhu Huntang remembered that his 2 jade seals had been destroyed by Lu Chang'an, and he had to find Shang Guandandan to carve them again, so he raised Lu Chang'an's hands and prepared to leave. Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand and grabbed her back. "You first submit the party application to the school, and then leak the news that you want to establish an education charity fund." "I know," Zhu Huntang said dully. Is there no time for him to stand up in front of Lu Chang'an other than being obedient? Hey, it's all because this bad old man is immortal and is not in a hurry to choose a successor. If he could only live to be a few hundred years old, and see that she is a peerless genius who is naturally capable of carrying forward the Kyushu Fenglay sword sect and possesses strong leadership, he would not kneel down and beg to let her ride on his neck. Using force to get her to agree to become his heir? What makes Zhu Huntang vaguely proud is that she is still very favored. Even though the old man was so angry with her that he wanted to become a bastard, he still thought about her. Study hard and don't just mess around all day long. Look at your mother, she is the top student among top students. How many top talents has she conquered with her professional abilities? She has elite soldiers and generals at her disposal. She can take them out at will. 1. They are all talents that major universities, cutting-edge technology companies, top laboratories, and even big countries are competing for. What about you? Leading a group of bred people. You are still the kind who will be knocked down by me within a minute. Lu Chang'an looked at she got angry. Seeing that Zhu Huntang not only did not reflect, but immediately showed a proud look on his face, Lu Chang'an knew what she was going to say and said angrily, "Don't tell me you can still be the leader." Zhu Huntang pursed his lips in boredom. Is he the bug baby in her belly? How come she just showed a little expression and he guessed what she was going to say? Can't a leader be proud? When my mother recruits talents, she chooses leaders in various industries, and Zhu Huntang is also one of the leaders. Zhu Huntang was scolded so badly that he went to play with Shang Guandandan and Bai Hui. He was scolded so cruelly today and suffered great physical and mental harm. The whole little fairy sheep was in bad condition and could not go to class at night. Oh ouch, I took a look at the background and found that since the last leader, everyone's rewards have accumulated to almost 100,000 starting coins. They are all starting coins, so you can't favor one over the other. Thank you for the big chapter tomorrow. Everyone. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 926. Lu Chang'an watched Bai Hui hand over her diamond mobile phone and other prizes to the staff for safekeeping, and gathered with Shang Guandandan and Zhu Huntang at the entrance of the resort building. He sighed softly. It seemed that their small group had been formed and they were attracted to each other. The characteristics of the other party. Only Zhou Shuling can blend in, but Yan Qingcheng cannot. Although Yan Qingcheng and Zhu Huntang usually have a good relationship, Shang Guandandan, a core figure who exudes the light of wisdom and pollution, joined in. Yan Qingcheng, there is a slight alienation between me and this small group, and we can no longer play together. At this time, Zhou Shuling was happily receiving the remaining prizes. Shang Guandandan's road show was over, and those things that were not given away were naturally given to her most beloved daughter-in-law. Lu Chang'an just came over to talk to Zhu Huntang and put Zhou Dongdong down, and now he went back to find Zhou Dongdong. It was the first time for the children to come to such a place, and everything they saw was new. "What are you doing?" Lu Chang'an asked. "Zhou Dongdong is at the archery field in the fitness area. There are no arrows here, only the bow is still on the bow stand. Zhou Dongdong is holding a bow on his head, and steps on the bowstring with 2 round feet holding up his shoes, and the back of the bow is pressed above her head. She looked nervous and a little scared, standing there unable to move. "I don't dare to move, I'm a little scared." Zhou Dongdong reluctantly raised his head and said. Lu Chang'an could see that Zhou Dongdong was very strong and could support the bow with her own strength, but now the bow and the string were exerting upward and downward force to trap her. She felt that if she moved erratically, the bowstring or the back of the bow would bounce back and hit her. She must be in pain. "I'm asking you, why did it become like this? What was the purpose of doing this stupid thing in the first place?" Lu Chang'an asked in detail. He failed a little bit in educating Zhu Huntang. He didn't have much confidence in the matter of Lu Qianqian, but he was relatively successful in educating Zhou Dongdong. Although it may seem stupid, you still need to understand your child's way of thinking and motivation so that you can better educate her and leave a deep impression on her so that she will not do such dangerous things next time. "I want to shoot myself into the sky," Zhou Dongdong said with some hope. There should be nothing wrong with his method, but he just doesn't know how to do it well. "Stupid kid. I'm smart and brave." Zhou Dongdong was dissatisfied. "Stupid kid. I'm witty, brave, and, also innocent and lively." Zhou Dongdong reluctantly waved his hand, indicating that his current behavior was witty, brave, innocent and lively. Lu Chang'an did not declare for the 3rd time that she was just a stupid child. He stepped on the bowstring with 1 foot and pulled the back of the bow with 1 hand to rescue her. "To be able to shoot you into the sky, you still have to rely on the Long March 9th. The Long March 5th is even harder, you know." Lu Chang'an took advantage of his knowledge and mocked Zhou Dongdong, but she had no idea. "Do you need a rocket to take me to the sky?" Zhou Dongdong, who had regained his freedom, waved his hands and ran around. "Brother Chang'an, are you saying that I will become an astronaut in the future? How do you know that Long March 9th and Long March 5th are rockets?" Lu Chang'an was a little confused. This child usually accompanied Lu Chang'an to watch the news, but usually she sat in his arms and ate instead of paying attention with Lu Chang'an. Content. "That's what our teacher said. The teacher said that there is not enough food for us on the earth, so we have to take a rocket to the moon to grow vegetables." Zhou Dongdong was slightly worried. If there is really not enough food on the earth in the future, maybe he will lose weight and become a child with little strength and no ability to protect others. Becoming an astronaut is a great ideal, but if you become an astronaut, the supply rocket needs to be launched 1 more time. Lu Chang'an raised a practical problem for Zhou Dongdong's ideal. Zhou Dongdong didn't know what he said had anything to do with Zhou Dongdong becoming an astronaut in the future, so he stepped on the bow that Lu Chang'an had thrown on the ground and pulled the back of the bow. "Can you learn a lesson? They say failure is the mother of success, but trying without learning any lessons is meaningless." Zhou Dongdong still tried to shoot himself into the sky, so Lu Chang'an held the bow horizontally in his hand, then put Zhou Dongdong on it, held her feet and put them on the bowstring, and then shot her out. Of course, the bowstring was not so powerful, but Lu Chang'an pushed her, giving her the illusion of being shot out. In fact, it was his hand holding her back, and he ran to the side of the swimming pool before letting go. Zhou Dongdong borrowed with the inertia, he flew out, danced and screamed, and landed on the inflatable duck in the middle of the swimming pool. "It's so fun." Zhou Dongdong climbed up and waved his hands excitedly. "I want to play more." Lu Chang'an despised it and pushed the inflatable duck over with the lifeguard pole next to the swimming pool. After all, it was idle time. It was better to play with Zhou Dongdong than to have a cerebral hemorrhage next to Zhu Huntang. At this time, Zhu Huntang was thinking about whether Shang Guandandan would turn into a sheep. If Shang Guandandan can also turn into a sheep, then adding himself and Lu Chang'an, an idiom will be formed: when three sheep go together, there will be grass to eat. Ha ha ha, it's just fun. Hui Hui, do you think these things are suitable for sale in my vending machine? Shang Guandandan and Bai Hui stood chatting outside a Baoking specialty store. Baoking's specialties include camellia oil, Wugang tofu, pig blood meatballs, Yunqian bud tea, Polygonata moderifer, etc. Shang Guandandan feels that these are the specialties that Zhou Shuling likes to bring back, and she can also buy some and sell them in the vending machine. People in the community should also like it. It seems that the tofu, pig blood balls, and tea can be put in. A barrel as big as tea oil can't be put in, and Polygonata moderatum needs to be repackaged. Bai Hui already knew Shang Guandandan's business plan: a huge business empire from vending machines start. It doesn't matter. Whatever you sell, I will support you. Bai Hui expressed his support. Shang Guandandan thought about it. Apart from himself, the main people who would patronize the vending machines were his daughter-in-law to be, and Dongdong. At that time, I will put some treasures in it from time to time, such as the Queen Seal and so on. Dandan, my candy house is your endless supply channel. Zhu Huntang reminded Shang Guandandan that she had given the candy house to Shang Guandandan. The candies and drinks in it are at their best viewing period. Before, Shang Guandandan would definitely not be able to eat it all, so he might as well sell it. Shang Guandandan frowned. They were all for himself and Dongdong to eat, but it seemed to be a bit much. Even he and Dongdong couldn't eat snacks tomorrow, so they just took a little and sold them. Xiao Tang is so good. Zhu Huntang's suggestion was still very helpful. Shang Guandandan raised his hand and touched Zhu Huntang's head. Dan, can you turn into a sheep? Zhu Huntang took the opportunity to ask. What are you asking? Bai Hui listened, feeling confused. What does it mean to change into a sheep? Just bleeding is no longer enough to satisfy Zhu Huntang. She even wants others to turn into sheep and play with her? Lu Chang'an will definitely do it. Shang Guandandan did not meet Zhu Huntang's expectations. I won't. Zhu Huntang was very sorry. Shang Guandandan touched Zhu Huntang's head again. Xiao Tang was too young after all, so it was easier to think about the problem. Lu Chang'an would turn into a sheep. If he turned into a sheep, it would be dangerous. As we all know, small animals don't wear clothes and are completely naked. After turning into a sheep, what should Lu Chang'an, who is also a sheep, not be able to control himself? Even if Shang Guandandan turns into a sheep, he will still be a phoenix sheep. He is so beautiful that other sheep cannot restrain their desire to mate. Bai Hui didn't know what they were talking about, but he didn't take it seriously. One of the reasons why Zhu Huntang and Shang Guandandan played so well was that Shang Guandandan would seriously consider and treat whatever Zhu Huntang said that was unreasonable and random. It's not like Lu Chang'an, who wants to hang Zhu Huntang up and beat him if he says 3 wrong sentences. The three of them continued to stroll on the street. Nanshan Forest Park is not a well-known tourist attraction, but there are 2 resorts nearby. Together with the local residents around it, it has formed a relatively lively small night market, where you can wander around at will. It feels good to go shopping. At this time, a low and powerful engine roar sounded, which attracted the attention of many people. You must know that here are mainly SUVs, family cars, and vans. The sound of this engine sounds like a sports car or modified car. Still quite rare here. Soon a red Ferrari drove over and slowed down in front of Zhu Huntang. Almost at the same moment, several of Zhu Huntang's black-clothed bakers rushed over from all directions and set up a defensive formation. Zhu Huntang, Why are you here? The car window was lowered. Wu Qinglian looked at the two people around Zhu Huntang, and looked at Zhu Huntang with a half smile. You are that Wudane Mountain. Zhu Huntang frowned inexplicably. In fact, she hated people who had no impression of her greeting her. If she couldn't recognize others, it would appear that Miss Zhu San was not good at socializing. Wu Qinglian's smile immediately faded, and she said with gritted teeth, "My name is Wu Qinglian. Zhu Huntang, we are all prominent figures in Taiwan, do you need to be so arrogant? Bah, you are the most important person in Taiwan. I am a fairy, and I am the most important person in the sky." Zhu Huntang disagreed, turned around and continued walking forward. Zhu Huntang was too lazy to pay attention to Wu Qinglian. Such pretentious women were often very petty. Maybe he would be resented by her if he didn't look at her directly on a certain occasion. Wu Qinglian originally felt a little humiliated and wanted to drive away directly, but when she saw Zhu Huntang left first, she did not leave immediately. Instead, she continued to look at Zhu Huntang's two friends, who looked like Zhu Huntang. They also liked those sensational costumes. One is wearing ancient clothes, and the other is wearing a fairy skirt similar to Zhu Huntang's style. Are you friends of Zhu Huntang? Wu Qinglian asked. Is not this nonsensical? Bai Hui nodded politely. This person Zhu Huntang. Let's go. Let's go. Wu Qinglian was about to say a few words, but a young man sitting in the passenger seat seemed to have a serious illness. His face was frightened, and he was clutching his chest with one hand, feeling frightened and uncomfortable, and nervously grabbing it with the other hand. Holding Wu Qinglian's thigh, urging Wu Qinglian to leave quickly. Wu Qinglian felt perplexed, and when she turned around, she saw the girl wearing ancient clothes, looking curiously into the carriage with her eyes wide open. Sorry, the update of the big chapter failed today. I am trying to calm down my emotions. If the update fails again tomorrow, I will be scratched to death by a cat.